over all this.
Destination.
Please.
Hidden.
Dun, dun.
Forgotten.
Dun dun dun.
This is Harbor Town.
I got Blue Box. I'm auto-hosting on the channel now. You'll see that pop off in a few seconds, and it'll go to this.
Harbor Town is an all-new series.
say
now
Now
is
is
when
building
they should start
authority,
talking about
the
the
leader
certs.
in tabletop games.
What's that, Mike?
I said now is when they should start talking
Flexible and
about
playable.
certs.
Harbor Town.
Yes,
will take your game.
absolutely.
That was all Eric.
So was that from 508 Sorrow as Deep as Night? Because I actually have a copy of that one in my little half-fade baby special mission folder.
Yeah, I believe so.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
That was the last in the trilogy with Khalees. Who was the princess that we borrowed from Keoland.
Oh, you guys put your blurb into poetry? Jesus Christ, pardon my language. Show
Put it
off.
on a t-shirt too.
That was to tell you it was a Fey adventure, so people who didn't want Fey adventures could put your wide.
Do that with all the Fey ones?
Yes.
Okay, alright, that's just showing off. I heard you guys were impressive, but damn.
Yeah, Geoff was impressive.
Insane is another.
Verse 3 of the Song of Three Summonings.
We had to run hard to keep up with Keoland.
We never got 16 mods in 1 year.
I breathed a sigh of relief when they cut us back to 8.
Yeah.
Wow. God.
We were lucky to get 8 in a year.
Was there not the limit in year 1 or 2? Because I thought the 8 mod limit was early.
First year was 12. We did 12 and it near killed us.
Yeah. The years when we did 9, there was 1 year I think we did 9 and 6 interactives, and that was just brutal.
In 2003, there was a hubbub on the Triad board because it was the end of March, and I think we were, what do we have, Sean, like 6 or 7 interactives at that point?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, you guys, it's like big region and people travel. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you can't give out stuff at every interactive. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. It didn't matter. They're still going to play and they're still going to come.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's when they
And
limited
Keolanders
us
still
with
travel, so.
ARs at interactives. Looks like we were doing 9 interactives a year for years 7 and 8 on top of the 9 regular adventures. Or rounds of adventuring for those years. Just so much content worldwide for the campaign.
Yeah. Amazing amount of, when you think about the raw
Hey, Mike.
tonnage of words.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that the sound's broadcasting out. Currently,
I'm looking at this Fae special mission, and I'm thinking maybe I made Teos write all of it. I thought I wrote half of it, but I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, like, what the hell is the Faux Reaver?
Yeah, the master delegator. You can delegate a lot of stuff in that.
What's up, David?
Is the-
Just checking sound, David. David, Mike, you guys hear us out there? Want to make sure that dotted all the I's and crossed the T's. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. I'm playing in Narwhal. It's an undestroyed Narwhal, unlike what happened in Living Greyhawk. Just kidding.
So, Eric, you know the story behind the Geoff shield? Or maybe Jose, do you know the story behind the Geoff shield?
It was given as a gift is how I got
Yeah,
Cool.
well, there is actually a story behind that shield.
it. Awesome. Tell us how, but wait.
That's probably we do it later, I guess.
Yeah,
Raincoat can be shown.
Let's save that for some fun discussion here, definitely. We're only 4 minutes to start here, so we're good. We're good, definitely. Woo! All right. I'm caffeine free now for first time in my life for a long time. I kind of changed some health habits, guys. So bear with me.
Oh, I I tried. That failed early.
Well, I'm allowed one small cup in the morning, and that's it.
Were you a big coffee drinker or tea drinker?
A coffee, yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
I just got a network error here. Are we still on Twitch? We're still on Twitch.
I'm seeing network error on Twitch too.
All right, we reload it.
Okay.
Chat seems to work though.
Yeah, the raid just came in too. Hey guys, we're almost there. Thank you all so very much. By the way, I'm giving away these sets tomorrow night. Two Ackless green of these Titan dice on tomorrow night's game. So yes, and these actually don't fumble that much, or maybe they do. I don't know.
I've never rolled them.
My black set of Titan dice, they fumble all the time.
Thank God.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you all for that raid. Thanks, John. We're almost come on. We're gonna do the entry screen right now here. So come on like 2 minutes early. Hello, hello.
Hey, there's Joe Selby in the chat.
Joe's in chat.
Right.
Oh my gosh, awesome,
Yeah.
Joe.
Oh boy.
Of divers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Joe.
Now it's a party.
Yeah.
Now it's a real party.
Joe's PC almost died on Monday in my campaign.
Oh, that's a terrible feeling.
Bad. He didn't get that close. We're doing, Sean, as I mentioned, Dragon at Icefire Pete. Joe's in that group. And we're doing it on Roll20 through D&D Beyond, which may not be the right way of doing it. We probably should have purchased it through Roll20 to get all the maps and all that stuff. But we just completed the dwarven hold of undead, or we're halfway through it with them.
Keoland and Diver. Geoff. You got me saying divers now, man. Oh my gosh. Are we pronouncing? All right. I will default to you. Is it Geoff or Geoff? Jeff. Jeff.
But when we were doing it, we had our own pronunciation during the Living Greyhawk times. It was Eric had a little document on it as well, because we sort of based the Flan Geary off of Welsh, and so there's a whole pronunciation guide, and so Geoff became Geoff, which was the Flan pronunciation for it. So
that's a little crazy. Good evening, though, everyone. Look at this.
Hey.
A massive crowd. I'm Jake, a.k.a. Lorcazumba. Like I said, I haven't had caffeine tonight, so bear with me. We got Anna Meyer and Greyhawk Mike Bridges, our normal hosts. Our special Living Greyhawk edition host, Casey Brown, with us. And then we have 5 other triads. Now, Conrad Brandemule is back, and we welcome him back for a great discussion. 4 brand new individuals from Keoland, Sean Merwin and Judy Rudolph. Say hello real quick there. Yay!
Hello.
And from Geoff, or Jeff, I already said it wrong. Eric Menge. Is it Menge or Meng?
The correct mispronunciation is Menge.
Menge. Eric
Yes.
Menge and
Shorty Longy.
Okay, cool. And Jose Ortiz. Thank you all for and welcome tonight. And let me say something. Thank you, Casey, for getting this together. This was all your legwork. I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. But Conrad was a big help in getting this one together. A lot of
great, Conrad. Thank you.
Here also worked on the 4th edition campaign that Conrad was involved in, Living Forgotten Realms. So he still had contact information and was a big help. But no, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate you having us on to talk about Living Greyhawk, Jay.
This is going to be another blast. It's going to be another great show where we talk about all your experiences, and it's always very positive, and you get a great feeling when the show's over, because man, it's some great memories. So let's start it right off. We'll start at the top and we'll work clockwise for all the newcomers. Jose, why don't you start off how you got into Living Greyhawk, and a little background and what you're doing now game wise.
Well, let's see how I got into it. Back in '99, I'm not sure how we heard about it, but there was a special event called Legacy of Valor that was sort of a preamble to the Living campaign. And so my home group and I signed up for it, played in it. It was a blast, and played in it for the next 5 years. And after that, I became triad in year 6 until the campaign ended in year 8. And now I have a home campaign. Play with Eric every once in a while. My home campaign is sort of on hiatus because of the whole COVID situation. But interestingly enough, to this conversation, my home campaign is only happening because I sort of reconnected with one of the original Geoff Triad members, Rob Cannerman, and so sort of playing with him. And then in the intervening years since Geoff, I've played, sort of on and off, but nothing organized as far as a living thing. So.
Well, welcome, and please, show us what your background is. What is that in the background?
So that is a banner that I painted probably in year 2 or 3. My friends and we would run some of the local Geoff conventions. There was a convention called HawkCon that we ran for 4 years, and it would travel with us to the cons, and that was sort of just says Living Greyhawks, Grand Duchy of Geoff. It's got the Green Man on it, and we brought that to all the Geoff conventions, sort of set it up. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go over to Judy. We'll go do you next. We'll bounce back and forth between both.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Sure. Actually got started in Living Greyhawk because the guy I was going out with at a time went to Gen Con to get all the 3rd edition books and met a guy that was running Living Force in Philadelphia. So we traveled to Gen Con to find the running locally, and he was a huge Star Wars fan. So we went to play Living Force, and they happened to have Living Greyhawk in the afternoon slot. That's how I actually got started. And was there, I don't think Con, it was, I think DisCon. It was one of the September or October conventions we went to down in Geoff. Was actually the first convention that I actually played D&D at, not one in Philly, because that would make too much sense. And was there and was triad for 3.5 years and played it till the end.
So Geek Goddess 67 says hi, Judy. So that's someone a fan of yours or a friend of yours.
That sounds familiar.
It's someone. So there you go. It's right in Twitch. So someone is saying hello to you. Well, thank you for coming on. I know we're going to have a fun time with this discussion. Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean Merwin. I started with Living Greyhawk when in about 2000, at the end of 2000, my daughter was about to be born, and I had played 1st and 2nd edition, but never got to the end of 2nd edition, and thought, well, this will be a good hobby to get back into. There were no players locally, and I heard about this Living Greyhawk campaign that had just started, and so I got involved and ran the first adventure. And being a writer and editor, I ran this first adaptable adventure and thought, this isn't very good. So I wrote my triad and said, hey, can I write some adaptations of this adventure? And they said, no. So I said, okay. And I continued to play a couple more adventures. And I wrote back, said, are you sure I can't do anything to help? And they said, no. And so I said, okay. And so then a couple months later, I'm like, are you really sure? Because I have some time and I'd love to do this. So they let me write this small write-up of this small county in the edge of the Keoland on the Rushmores. And I sent it in and they're like, hey, this isn't too bad. And I said, well, why, thank you. And then a writing director job opened up, and I applied and got rejected. And about 2 months later, that writing director didn't work out. So another writing director job opened, and I said, hey, can I do this? And they said, sure. and that was the beginning of my career as a game designer. So I have Living Greyhawk to blame, and so do a lot of people out there. I was Keoland Triad for 2 years, and I left everything in the capable hands of Judy when I left. And then I went on to do the Zendrick Expeditions campaign for Eberron for 3rd edition. When 4th edition came about, Living Forgotten Realms started, and I applied and became one of the global administrators of that campaign. Then when 5th edition came around, I was asked to join the team that would lead the new organized play campaign, and I said, I need a break. So instead of doing that, I went into freelancing and have been writing now for several years on 5th edition, including the Acquisitions Incorporated hardcover book.
Nice.
The last hardcover release for Wizards was Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus. I worked on that. And now I am helping with the organized play campaign for Eberron called Oracle of War for the Adventurers League.
Fantastic. You're keeping
Wow.
yourself busy with it, and that's great to hear.
Yeah, I like how you were like, no, I can't do this because I need a break, but let me do all these other things.
That's wonderful.
There's a
Greyhawk did that to you.
loose. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can bring it back to Greyhawk with some reminiscing here and maybe some
I'm looking
games.
forward to it. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. Eric Mengi. Did I say that right? Eric, you okay? Welcome.
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you. Much like Jose, although I totally want to brag on Jose for a bit. To give you an idea of his artistic talent, the man creates all the settings, all the set design for the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C.
Oh my
So
gosh,
you
that's
go
awesome.
see hard, you're going to be behind all the people acting is Jose's work.
That's beautiful.
And
that's great.
we got him to illustrate stuff for Geoff, and I was over the moon with it. Much like Jose, I joined Living Greyhawk through the Legacy of Valor, which was that prequel that they put together by two incredible designers by the name of Shalom West and David Quick. And this Greyhawk had just been announced, and we had been given the country of Geoff, which at the time was overrun by giants, and everyone had been boot stomped into oblivion in the entire region. And so they came up with this idea of, how do you start a region in this situation? And they said, well, obviously we got our butt kicked in an epic fashion before the campaign started. So they decided to run an entire weekend event of the parties every adventurer being curb stomped for about 36 hours by giants. And we went to it and they killed everybody. It was fantastic.
Almost everybody
have been beaten to a halt by a giant. You just have to come back for more. And I was up to that point in time. I knew Shalom, I knew Dave. I asked if I could write an adventure, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, we need people to write, so we don't write everything. So they let me write an adventure. It was called Gifts of the Fae. And I don't know what they were expecting, but it probably wasn't that adventure. It was a very unique adventure in that it had almost no combat. In fact, the adventure actively discouraged combat as you were trying to navigate your way through a fairy court. But it was wildly popular. And they then asked me to do another one, and then Rob Canterman, who Jose mentioned earlier, stepped down from the Triad for life reasons, and they had an opening, and they asked me if I wanted to join. And I was like, yes, I would love to. So I hopped on the bandwagon and started writing Geoff, and had a marvelous time doing it for 5 years. And at the end of it, I collapsed in exhaustion and feebly held up my baton to Jose, who grabbed it on my hand and ran for 5 minutes.
After refusing it the first time.
That's how you know he deserves it.
Following that 5 years, I actually then went on to do a bit of the core adventures under Crichton Broadhurst. So I was doing the low-level core plot line, which was all about the city of Greyhawk and the entire shenanigans involving the oligarchy of what was going on there. So I think we ended that one with an election for a new director on the directing oligarchy at the very end, which was everything you would expect out of a Greyhawk election. I still have the voting results somewhere in the bag. We never got to actually tally it up to see who is the new director. But that's another show. Also worked on Living Forgotten Realms for a little bit. Then I had a kid, stepped away, came back for Adventurers League, where Baldman Games, who runs the D&D at Origins and Gen Con, got the opportunity to write adventures in the Moonshae Isles in the Forgotten Realms. And if you're familiar with Moonshae Isles from Doug Niles' books, you'll know that they're pretty much Forgotten Realms Geoff. They're very Celtic. They're very mystic with druids and werewolves and fairies. I was like, well, I'm back home again. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm writing on that, currently writing that one right now. We wrap up our series there at this year's Winter Fantasy in February.
Beautiful.
Very cool. Is Baldman Games Conforti?
Steve was involved with it for a while, but it's Dave Christ who was the
okay. Gotcha. And you said Dave Christ wrote the Legacy of Valor thing you played in, is that correct?
Oh, no, it was David Quick.
It was David
Quick. Okay.
And Shalom West.
So I've never heard of Legacy of Valor. Had you, Conrad?
I had not. I joined afterwards.
Yeah, that sounds amazing to have a prequel event where you just murder all the PCs.
This is what it's going to be like.
They're all excited about it and come back.
It was especially cool, I thought, because the way they ran it is there was a whole room, what would become known as Battle Interactive later on, but it was basically the first Battle Interactive. And the way they ran it, they had 30 tables in a big ballroom, and if your character got killed by a giant or an ogre or whatever, you got taken out of the table, handed a character sheet with a troll or a giant, and you got to turn around and chase your friends around the city until you killed them.
That's awesome.
It was like a giant game of blobs. So as more and more players died, there were more and more monsters on the field, and so it started escalating.
Evil musical chairs, it sounds like, too. That's great.
Someone should run that for virtual Greyhawk Con.
Definitely. Eric, I got to ask you one question. Is it pronounced Crichton Broadhurst, not Creighton?
Crichton, I believe.
What's that?
Crichton. I think it's Crichton.
It's Crichton. Okay. I've reached out to him a couple times to get him on. If you are a connection to still, maybe I will talk to you. That would be fantastic.
I added for him. He's doing Raging Swan, which is his self-press that he's got.
Yep.
And having a blast doing it. He's got a great team over there. They come out with all sorts of wonderful things.
Okay. Well maybe I'll talk to you afterwards.
His logo is angry swan.
Yeah. we need to get the Europeans on the show. We got to figure out the time difference and hear their stories.
Figure something out.
Peter
Schleipen, yeah.
Yeah,
I think Peter declined.
Yeah, he declined because of the time zone.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We'll work on that. Maybe we'll do an earlier one. We'll figure it out. We'll figure something out.
Might do it pre-recorded or something.
Conrad, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
I do.
Do you have something you'd like to share special, or you want to hold that off till a little later? What would you like to?
We can hold off till later.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I joined. I started as a player. Then towards the end of the Greyhawk, of course, we didn't know at the time. I joined a triad and started doing a lot of conventions. HawkCon was one of the early conventions I went to in Geoff, and I think Geoff was probably the one region I visited the most to play in throughout my LG career. So I really enjoyed the storylines with Geoff and had a lot of fun and kept me coming back.
I knew you looked familiar.
For the audience out there, I want to say as a BK guy, I always heard good things about both Geoff and Keoland, and I want to apologize because I'm sure I trashed both of them on our Triad Yahoo groups at some point, bitching about AR access that the Sheldamar Valley gave out. We used to call it the land of milk and honey, or the land of cheese.
Keoland, not us.
But these stories, when people traveled to that region and came back, they were always very, had great stories about the games they played. And that didn't always happen when LG people traveled. just depending on their experience. So I just wanted to give them that shout out that we had heard about them even in Texas and Oklahoma.
There's Gary.
There's good. Late but made it.
Hey.
Gary Julian's on.
Yep.
There we go. So,
Awesome.
all right, let's get some questions rolling. And Anna, Mike, why don't you guys throw one out there to start off? And we'll
I want to bring up real quick. So
Sure.
Eric was talking about the election in City of Greyhawk and everything. That was did not play out in the Greyhawk Grumbler
Mhm.
articles.
Yeah.
I remember those.
You wrote the Grumblers.
Yeah, I'm the Grumbler author.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
They were a hoot.
I think is there 3 of them?
Yes, that's all we had time to put out. We were using them as a way. One thing we did in Geoff, we did these little narratives between adventures to kind of link the story together. I didn't think that was appropriate for the core, so we went with the yellow journalism mixed with Stephen Colbert and broadsides that were the Grumbler.
They're good reads. I love. There's a little bit of a quirkiness and a little bit of a mix of different perspectives, and I immediately love them. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
They were fantastic to write.
I'm rewatching Jay's old streams while I work, and he's been throwing the Grumbler up in this scrolling images thing on some of these streams.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Definitely. Because when you find that kind of content that hits that mark, and me missing all of Living Greyhawk, doing my own thing, it just I was like, oh, this is awesome. So yeah, definitely.
That header took forever to make. The mascot. What I had to do is I went to these.
Right.
And I scanned in the top of these and then cherry picked the letters and then combined them individually one by one.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, yeah, that's the
Well, we have Greyhawk Gothic now, by the way. We have
that was
Darlene.
me not wanting
yeah.
to do the same thing. So I reached out to Darlene and see if I could bribe her, coax her, and all that to do it. And it took about a year, but with a little bit of coaxing and guiding and bribing and pleading and so on, she did it. So yep.
If there's ever any time I can help you bribe her, let me know.
Okay, well, you can join the Patreon. That's a great way of bribing her.
I love her work.
Yep.
Anna, you have a question? That was a good one, Mike. That was a good start there. Pull that right out.
So I'm kind of I want to hear, but we don't need to start with this. But I want to hear how much of Geoff you managed to liberate before the end of the campaign. So that's always been kind of interesting to me. Meaning, how successful were you?
It's a good one. I got one for the Keolanders that Gary Julian brought up on Sunday night during our massive 5-hour and 24-minute long 100th Cabin show. And that is, if any Living Greyhawk leader deserved to die, it's the King of Furiundi, and it never happened. I mean, King of Keoland, I apologize. Why did that not happen?
No.
Well, it kind of did, and then it kind of didn't, and then it kind of did. I mean, well, I was only Triad for 2 years. When I came in, it was at the end of the first year, and with no offense to anyone who had worked on it before, things were in shambles, to the point where I was told later that they were going to close the region down completely.
Really?
Yes. And I didn't know this at the time. Yes. Well, no one did except the Circle, apparently.
Drama.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of, personal problems with people interacting with each other. And I was just like, I had no idea. I didn't know anything about anything. So I just sat down and I'm like, okay, boss, tell me what to do. And the Triad member, the only other Triad member that was there at the time was Sam Weiss. And he said, okay, here's what we need to do. And I thought, I'm ready. And he put a list down in front of me that was like 20 miles long. and the very first thing was, we have to work with the yeomanry to create this cross regional adventure that we had promised them. And I guess there was some tension there. So I had to start there, go in with someone I had never met before, work with them to get this last season 1 adventure across the finish line, and then start on season 2. And so when I when I finally got done with that, I felt like I dug myself out of a hole, and then I was ready to look ahead. And looking ahead, there wasn't quite. Geoff had giants. That's a huge, visceral thing that the players would love to beat on. Keoland has a lot of secrets.
Yeah.
And secrets are cool until they're not. And they have to be led up to. And there was really no way to get to those secrets. There was this 8-year plan that they had that the players were like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know. Over here, they're fighting giants and they're visiting Fae, and there's all these cool things. So, and as a Keelan triad, all I ever heard was, why can't we be like Geoff? So good job. Thank you, Eric. But no, but it was true, right? Because they had these great in-your-face, even the subtle adventures were right there. They were visceral. There were secrets going on behind the scenes, but the stuff you were doing up front was cool. So my first job as a triad was to start some stories that people could sink their teeth into right now. And I feel like for the 2 years that I was triad, I was able to start some storylines and then leave for my the people that followed to then wrap those things up in a way that they wanted to. I had planted seeds, but I wanted them to be able to reap the benefits, hopefully, of those. And that's where Judy can talk more about the stuff that happened after I left, when Christian was taking over the story role.
Like Sean said, he got stuff started, and one of the things we tried to do, even at work, I was on what we call Team Storyteller, where people, oh, you're waiting for your machine to reboot. Let me tell you a story in the meantime. And there were so many people who didn't have a Greyhawk background, and they wanted to know. People were, I mean, it was New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, and we all got attitude, but we're all fiercely loyal. And once you give them something to grab onto and start framing it so that they understand, you know, travel unpacks all over the place. And the Keolanders, it was like, oh, it's those guys. It was like, yes, it's a bunch of people that work at game shops, so they spend all day, you know, their job is to sit there and read the manual 16 times. But we had to start putting things in perspective, and Sean got that started, I think, through Keoland, was one of the things where it was like, okay, guys, you realize that Keoland is 1,000 miles from end to end. Like, you can't get from Gradsul to Flynn in 2 days.
Right.
You know, it's a big place. It's the Holy Roman Empire. You know, it's been 1,000 years and it's never been conquered. Which, you know, you give that to East Coasters, and we're like, we're big and we're badass. All right, this. And then different people started picking up certain story arcs. And when people got hold of a story arc and they knew that it was going to happen, it's like, oh, here's the one with the Dreadwood. So we're going to have something that would be appropriate for that. Here's something that's in Gradsul, and you know, the Sea Mages came up because it was everybody started to pick a home base, and I think that's what was missing. It was, you were from Keoland, but this was your Keoland neighborhood. And when people started creating characters to go with the story arc instead of, oh, you know, I've never played a barbarian before, I'm just going to play a barbarian, it's like, but you're going to be a barbarian. But where are you from? And what does that mean? Because it meant different things in different locations. And once we had the modules and once we had the interactives, and like Eric said, we would do the narratives on the Yahoo boards in the meantime. And people were like, hey, this is where you find out what goes on between the mods that come out every 6 months for this story arc. So there are NPCs who never showed up in a mod that people are like, we're going to die for her. And, you know, that's what they would take with them when they would go to other regions. And it's like, oh, these are ours. And it gave them that, you know, we need that banner, we need that shield, we want to wave the flag. What colors is our region? Okay. And then I think that's, like Sean said, once he got things started, and then people were like, oh, okay, you know, I might not like this, but I have 3 or 4 other things to jump on. And people went 150% because it was a region that was very fitting for the personality of the people who lived in it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick, Sean and Judy. Would you say Keoland is home to sinister secrets? I mean, come on. That
Yes.
one's just too easy.
Very, very, very sinister secrets around a marshy area that may have salt.
And
Most
I'd like to
there's no one
segue
getting
that
killed.
real quick into 2 more questions, real quick questions. When Jay was asking about killing of the king, something that we've talked about in previous shows is other regions tended to kill off major NPCs very quickly to make a big splash in their campaigns, but none of us have yet to admit this. Joe's in the audience with divers. BK, I mean, we killed everybody, but the Iusians were in charge. So no big changes there. But that was where that joke was kind of coming from, Jay. So now I'm just going to blame the Europeans as the ones who killed all their NPCs, and then they can come on the show and defend themselves.
Gary's the one that said he should be killed. Right? He's the one that Gary only in himself says, if there's one that should have been, it should have been the King of Keoland. I'm like, okay.
Not only was the King of Keoland kind of killed, I was almost killed in real life because we had an interactive in which Black Razor, the sword Black Razor, possessed one of the nobles and he stabbed the king.
How'd you guys get Black Razor?
It's a long story. We only have 2.5 hours. So I wasn't Triad at the time, but I was at the convention, and they're like, "Hey, would you play the king?" And I'm like, "Sure, this would be fun." So they had an interactive, and then at the end they had a little LARP to show what happened as a result. So we're backstage practicing, and the gentleman who was supposed to stab me is stabbing on my right side. You know, I should add, he was using a real sword that was very, very sharp.
I did give you real leather armor.
I was wearing real leather armor, thanks to Judy. All right, so we're practicing backstage, and he's stabbing me on my right side. And we get out onto the stage where this is going to happen, and the way it was set up, we had to be turned around. And so I thought, well, he is obviously now going to stab me on my left side away from the audience, but he decided to still stab me on my right side. So as I moved right for the stab to come left, he stabbed directly into me with this sword. And the point of the sword went into the armor and nicked me, and then went off to the side. So I'm all that flashed before my eyes was the Darwin Awards this year.
Critical hit of critical hits.
I would have shut Living Greyhawk down if that murder hobo.
Kidney shot.
So that's how I remember that King Kimbertos was in fact kind of killed. I think he went into
so you were almost stabbed to death by Black Razor.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
And there's worse ways to go.
There are, in fact.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
As a player of a Keoland worshiper, I'm just like, I want Black Razor.
I want Black.
We for what it was worth, the Sean that took over for Sean Merwin after he left was a New Yorker through and through. And I remember one of the discussions we had on the Triad board was trying to figure out exactly how to portray Kimbertos. And my impression at the time was kind of a Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn, Aragorn.
Yeah, he's a ranger.
Right.
He's a ranger.
High level ranger, right?
He's a ranger. So Sean Smith, who was from New York, said, no, he's like Judge Dredd. He can wear the mask,
Judge Dredd,
and you recognize him by his chin.
the Carl Urban version.
And that's how we went for the next.
Gosh, that's cool.
I'm so glad we got Cleese out of there when we did.
That's.
It was a tough region because, as Judy said, it's New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and the Philly people. I'm from South Jersey, and Philly people, New York City people don't get along.
Right. And I'm from Western New York, so I'm like basically Midwest. So I'm, all happy.
Syracuse
And-
West.
even further.
Oh my
Fredonia.
gosh.
So I'm like, I
Okay.
am
Yeah.
almost Ohio, almost, I'm way out there.
Yeah.
So I'm just like Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, and I get on the boards and I'm talking with people, and they're like calling me all sorts of filthy names. So I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And so I went
In a loving way.
in a loving way. Well, I went to a con in Philly, the first time I went really to the East Coast for a convention. And so I'm walking through, and at this point, I think people kind of like what I've done. So I think I'm in pretty good shape. And someone screams, "Hey, are you Merwin?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You're a no talent ass clown."
That's awesome.
And that was a term of endearment that I came to find. At least that's what they told me. But it was a tough region. There were a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and they were not afraid to tell you them in graphic detail.
They should have made the New Yorkers Sulwees and the PA and South Jersey people Iridians, and then it would have been really good because that rivalry.
Yeah, we kind of did. New
Oh,
York
yeah?
was grad school. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on the coast. It's a little rough, and then out up in the western parts of the states, it's a little more.
Yeah,
it's a little
the
nice, a little
Pittsburgh
more of
and
the
Erie guys
homeland.
at Kryler and Flynn.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Anna, didn't you have a question for Geoff about setting up the storyline? Maybe I misheard you, but one of the things I wanted to ask real quick to Eric and Jose was, my understanding was that there's a story, a novel that kind of wrecks Geoff, that was written before the campaign with the giant reattack, the drow, the bubble over the city. Was that anything? Am I remembering that correctly? And then not the adventure.
That is advisory.
Okay.
Whenever we came on, we were instructed by the circle that we absolutely positively could not use drow. And we were like, all right, no drow, fine, fair enough. You're obviously saving them for something important, I understand. And sure enough, year 3, they had them wreck some guy's birthday party in Steric. So I guess that's what they were saving.
That's what they were saving him for?
The red birthday.
This is my shocked face. Because they did that with Stoink, and I think Joe said they did that with the Free City of Greyhawk and the divers relationship, and all kinds, and other regions have all said the same thing. We were all told these are toys you can't play with, and then they never developed them. And then in the BK, like, we were told you can't do anything with Stoink, and then in year 5 we just said to hell with you, and we started setting mods there.
That's awesome.
I guess it's the same person who made those lists on year 1, and then it's probably Mona.
We'll ask him Sunday
I'm probably gonna
night.
get yelled at on Sunday.
I have him coming on the cabin Sunday night.
But we got told no drow, and then the drow showed up, and we're like, we already decided we're going a different direction. We took that other adventure that came out as advisory. It was, I got it on the shelf here. The Liberation of Geoff. That's it. Which went a completely different path. But we looked through it, and one of the things we noticed is there's no way that it could stand up against a organized play campaign, where you have hundreds of player characters working together, because that's the joy of an organized play campaign, is you get to play not just with the 5 people at your table, but with dozens or hundreds of other tables. And the 8 giants that are in Liberation of Geoff just weren't going to cut it. So we had to really ramp it up a whole lot in order to showcase that you could stand up against an entire country. And so we took it as advisory. We stole some things from it. We got a lot of inspiration, but we didn't follow it hardcore. We assumed we were kind of not canonical anyway.
So it sounds like you guys didn't partake of the theory. We called it the theory of 6 bozos. And in the Bandit Kingdoms, every adventure was really only done by 6 PCs. Everyone else was in an alternate universe of their own until an interactive happened, and then everyone got sucked through a wormhole to be on one prime material plane and partake in that particular adventure. You can't have 100 different people killing the same vampire. So we called it the theory of 6 bozos. But it sounds like because you guys had your interactive in-character board very early on in the campaign, you guys decided all of these characters are alive and breathing at the exact same time.
Yeah, we went through a lot of ends. The tavern's getting burned down.
Yeah.
We decided what happened on the board. So we had the boar's knuckle, the boar's other knuckle, and what was the third one?
Geez, something about a stag. I forget the
He kept burning down the inn.
white stag.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot of fun because people, I think, went on there deliberately to stir up trouble, and then they found that the campaign responded to them, and the players who were very invested were like, "Stop it! You're wrecking our house!" And
Yeah. Well, that was sort of the draw to get people. I mean, to me, some of the draw to get people to actually attend the conventions was the fact that if a module premiered at a certain convention, you had each DM had a tracking sheet, and whatever the results of that module were, whatever the majority of the results is what actually happened in the storyline, and then the storyline would change due to that. So people would come to the convention's module premiere so they could affect the storyline. You could play it after that, but what counted was at the convention.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the beauties of living Greyhawk versus, and some of you have done LFR and AL, and I've played in Pathfinder Society, but none of the other campaigns, as far as I know, has really worried overly much about the actual results. They've already had things pre-plotted out.
Yeah,
Conrad,
I mean,
I was going to say. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I want to hear Conrad.
I was going to say, Conrad, do you have questions for either of the groups here? Because I always think you put some insight into things here.
I know that I never made it to Keoland, but you guys were talking about a king, and I seem to recall early on in one of the Geoff mods there was some king shenanigans going on. Did that ring a bell? Apparently, Eric is shaking his head. Something along the lines like you were doing some missions, and an NPC was kind of guiding you through some ways, and then all of a sudden you're confronting the king and his minions, and all of a sudden the NPC unveils to be the true king.
Yes.
And the king, and then a fight ensues, and you're there trying to help the real king.
You threw me. That's our Grand Duke.
Yep, Grand Duke.
We were trying to get around the problem of why did the Grand Duke do a whole bunch of very odd things between Legacy of Valor and the start of the campaign. So we started off the idea that the Grand Duke had been replaced early on by a Fey changeling. Okay. And that the giants actually had the ability they had formed an alliance with the Unseelie Court from the Fey Wild. And that was how they were getting their goblin minions, is that the Unseelie Queen Maeve was compelling the goblins to serve the giants, and also gave them this changeling to take the place of the Grand Duke. But the Grand Duke triumphantly returned in an adventure called The Return of the Grand Duke.
Didn't see that coming.
Yep, it was a surprise to everybody, which a lot of people were asking before they got in there, of like, did he go somewhere? But it was that one was a lot of, you had to put clues together. That was a mystery more than a fight on that adventure.
It was certainly something pretty memorable for me early on in Greyhawk when did some of those adventures, and it popped with the Return of the Grand Duke. That was memorable.
Well, thank you. And we wanted all the players to experience it, but we didn't have the 6 bozos theory. We kind of just asked everyone to blink and pretend that they were all kind of sort of overlapping, but their adventures were near each other, but not the same one. And the players, for the most part, went along with the fiction.
Yeah, we sort of had the 2000 bozos theory.
And that was the players, not the
exactly. That was our player base.
Well, and it was always, we did a lot to try and incorporate stuff that happened at the conventions. There was that one, we didn't have that many, we didn't do little interactives.
No.
For big, massive things. And there was the one, Sean, you might remember, which was the one where people started throwing the Qual's Feather tokens around in the castle.
Oh, I wasn't at that one, but I remember the
like
stories.
boats and trees.
Well, they had the
And
Qual's
anchors.
Feather token,
Anchors.
and
Yeah.
we had enough people who either had ranger characters from playing in Geoff, or ranger characters, or characters of the wild from being in the Dreadwood, and the Qual's Feather token was a cheap thing. Well, you could drop a Qual's Feather token and tree walk from one to the next. So it was, hey, my druid is teleporting because there's a tree down there.
Oh my god.
And someone dropped the tree like in the middle of the castle at Dowerstone at an interactive. And we're like, it's interactive, it's for real. So we actually did a narrative at one point where like there's this court babble back and forth, and Cumberto's is like wah 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 wah, and he just gets up and walks through the nearest tree that somebody left there. And it was just whoever the players were from that table, they're like, that's our tree, that's our tree, and so they could see that going to a convention, it was not just support like the poor people that are putting this convention together out of their own pockets, but to really be able to meet the other players that you met on the boards. And no, you really did stuff that followed the campaign, and that kept them coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the meta orgs were great for all the regions probably, but in Keoland it was very important because we had such a diverse population, all wanting to do different things. So having those meta orgs allowed them to express themselves in a way that was more manageable than every player wanting to affect the region. You could join a meta org, and the big meta orgs, the more work you did on your meta org, we could let the meta orgs change the region and change the adventures, to the point where meta orgs were becoming big key parts of the plot of the adventures we were writing. So it was great to have that sort of tool in the toolbox for a living campaign, especially to be able to pull that off.
And
Speaking
it gave
of,
them,
oh,
sorry,
I wanted to ask
the
you
meta
both
orgs
regions
gave
about
them
interactives
something
after this.
to relate to, so that even if they went outside of their region, like, hey, maybe there's no mods that are, but this is what I'm part of, and this is how my character acts. And every time you meet another half-breed from Haven, it's like, Keoland hates half-breed. Doesn't matter if you're half elf, half orc, and they have the complex, and they would go to other regions, and it's like, wait, half-orcs are citizens in Ket? That's different.
Yeah. And the BK, I mean, a half orc was normal. You're just glad it wasn't a demon. Let me ask you guys about conventions and interactives, because we've explained this to the audience, but in case we have new audience members, an interactive was an event where multiple tables would be playing the same event simultaneously and could often impact each other's results. Like table A could go help table B during a big crazy fight, and things like that. So you guys all come from very populated areas of the country. Conrad and I were in Texas, and while we had some major cities, he was in Oklahoma, Dallas and Houston, whatnot. I think we probably got up to maybe 18, 20 tables at our biggest interactives. I've heard from divers that they got up to like something crazy, like 350 people at a con and 200 people. But how many tables have you run simultaneously for your interactives, given your population craziness?
The biggest one that I know of, and I managed to get most of them, was the wedding cross regional with Geoff. We had it down by the Philly airport. So I 18 tables signed up. I had 27 judges, and we ran either 38 or 39 tables. Because I was randomly going, it's like, I know your name. Can you DM for me for interactive?
Wow.
And that's how we were grabbing DMs. I mean, we had so many people show up because it was across regional, and because it was, a big story arc that was going to kick off, mods for years to come. And I mean, I think most of the interactives that I saw were probably in the 20 to 25 range.
Yeah,
and table wise.
And I don't think you want to get bigger than that. You can get. We ran 100 table. We called them epics now, but we ran 100 table one at Gen Con, and it was just too much. You lose the ability to really affect things. I mean, it feels cool, but then to try to mechanically make the game work,
right? And that's Gen Con. You know,
right,
that's not
exactly
some airport near Philadelphia in Jay's backyard.
Yeah, 6 miles from my house.
Been there.
Unbelievable. The ironies. Wow. That's insane though. Still 39 tables.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So many people. We took over everything in that hotel.
Yeah.
But we've been laying the groundwork for that one for months, with narratives on Keoland's side, narratives on Geoff's side, adventures leading in from both regions that were both meeting at the same level. There's a bunch of negotiations whether or not Geoff was going to rejoin the Court of the Land, which is the Parliament of Keoland. And what this meant for the future of the whole country, for both countries, and people really wanted to be part of that. It was fantastic.
So
I'm just so mad I didn't see any of that.
Yeah. What? This is going to sound like a very basic question. And was there a single entity who was the evil antithesis in both regions, or was it a group, or was it just that didn't happen? A lot of them seem to have that.
At the wedding interactive, I don't believe so.
No.
But overall,
it was a bunch of everyone was jockeying for power.
Okay.
And influence, and so it was which meta orgs, like Judy mentioned earlier, which ones were going to get a boost in reputation and power coming out of that interactive. So it wasn't so much you were playing against other villains; you were playing against other players to see who could accumulate more reputation and influence
while fighting giants.
Rivalry,
right? For you guys.
What now?
While fighting giants.
Oh no, we didn't have any giants show up. We did have.
No, I mean throughout the whole campaign.
Adventurers Guild showed up, and that led to all sorts of shenanigans.
No, I mean, but for your whole arc, your whole campaign, I thought the giants were your big bad foes.
The giants are the big bad for us.
That's correct. And to sort of dovetail off of that, I was actually doing a little bit of my homework before I came on, and I was looking through old documents, and I found the Geoff Meta Org source book that took, I don't know how many years to write, but it's 115 pages long.
Gosh.
And it had, all your Army of Liberation, and within the Army of Liberation, that was one section, and that had the Longbowmen, the Rangers, the Cavalry. It had all the different, and so there was definitely friendly rivalries within the meta orgs. For example, the Rangers and the Longbowmen were always, sort of having a friendly rivalry during conventions and during battle interactive and stuff like that. Sort of a Legolas.
Cavalry was always the also ran,
right?
If you don't have a strong cavalry tradition, so
you had multiple organizations that a PC could join in Geoff. Can you just go over them real quick for us?
Oh boy,
just top six.
We got 2 hours. Let's see. So the two I mentioned. So we had the Army of Liberation, and then within the Army of Liberation, there was different divisions. So the Longbowmen was a popular one. The Rangers of Geoff, the Olwithi was a popular one. You could be infantry. What else? We had a bunch of different church. The Old Faith meta orgs. You could be a member of the Old Faith. Geez, what else, Eric? What am I missing here?
I'm pulling it up now, sir.
There you go.
Was the Old Faith?
But while he's pulling it up, one of my complaints was that we didn't have campaign-wide meta orgs. I bitched about this a lot on previous shows and on the Yahoo groups because, they had their own Old Faith. Well, in the Bandit Kingdoms, we had our own Old Faith meta org, and really, Living Greyhawk should have said, "Hey guys, here is a Flaness-wide meta org." But I feel the campaign made a big mistake not doing that.
I think that would have been a control issue, to be honest.
Well, we've mentioned this on previous shows, but all of us became triads because we all have control issues.
Oh, man.
True that.
No argument.
Oh boy, yeah.
That wants to know if that source book's available to the general public.
I mean, I have it in as PDF. No reason why it wouldn't be. 'Cause I'm
How
sure
about
you
I'm going to ask the question for Christoph. He's always trying to keep data on Greyhawk Online and maybe uploading it to Greyhawk Online, so that he's done that with a lot of other websites or
You can
whatever.
share it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sure,
it can
yeah.
be shared because I know immediately I saw Amy say, "Is the source book available?" and a couple others are like, "Wow," Josh as well, and it sounds fantastic. Of course, we're all talking about for free usage for
Yeah.
personal campaigns. So maybe we'll reach out and you can.
Yeah.
We can talk afterwards. You can email to me, and then I'll get it out to people per
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
needed, or Casey can do it. That'd be
What
fantastic.
wasn't Brit's unofficial? I swear this isn't official legal advice. Was that the meta campaign stuff, which was freely available? There's no real issue in distributing it. We're not trying to sell it. It's not even
Yeah,
fan content we're presenting as our own work. It's just when it comes to the actual adventures themselves, the ownership rights are super murky.
that was my
So
understanding.
yeah, I'm still wanting to continue that conversation with Brit. Brit has a law degree. Before I release the BK MetaOrg stuff. But I really think for archival purposes, we should be able to put all this stuff in a collection somewhere so people can go look at it.
Well, I can tell you for the first, once the players found out that WotC was doing away with the living campaign, there was a lot of trading of flash drives sort of within the community. And I'm pretty sure if you know where to look, you can find all the mods and Geoff out there somewhere in the internet. Because that was sort of you're going to take away our community. Well, we're going to share this with everybody. And
Yeah.
All right, I got your answer for you. In addition to the Army of Liberation from MetaOrgs, we had all the ones from the various churches. Our biggest religion was the Old Faith, so it was all druidic. Then the secular groups, where you had the Chosen of Khalees, who were like you volunteered to be a personal bodyguard to the Grand Duchess of Geoff, Princess of Keoland. Clear Sky Camp, which was the half-orcs. The Company of Giant Slayers. The Duke's Spies, called the Vigilant Eyes. The Midnight Ravens, who were the Thieves Guilds. The Old Lord Bards. And then we had some just general of like folk of Geoff and Trivden of Hawkok, which were like the townsfolk and the country folk. So those were kind of, we tried to have a wide variety that you could pick from, that everyone could find something that they were interested in.
So for both regions, it was so huge with population. What was the top amount of participation? Like, did we have 1,000 from each? It sounds like with all those organizations, you had a lot of participants. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely in the high hundreds, I'd say.
Okay.
As far as people joining, and it was a big draw. I mean, people loved joining the MetaOrgs. I'd get requests. In fact, I even got a request from a Grand Marcher because they wanted to join a MetaOrg and Geoff, and I was like, I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, we had to write a MetaOrg so people from other regions could join it in the BK.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, with New York City, Philly, New Jersey,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Buffalo, we had well over 1,000 for sure.
Yeah.
And probably a couple, 2,000 or 3,000 over the years for sure.
Man.
Well, I mean, there was the Knights of the Watch and the Knights of the Dispatch were the biggest meta regional MetaOrg. So that was the one that you could take from region to region. And that was very, very traditional, knightly.
Bow down.
Yeah.
Within the Sheldamar, yeah.
Because that was something we were pushing for in the IU's lands, and we could never make it happen. And then I heard about this being successful, over in the Sheldamar, and I was like, see, it can be done.
But that's original canon though. The Knights of the Watch. It goes all the way back to the original.
Yeah,
to the
I don't
original
care.
glossography. I'm just saying.
From I use the evil,
I
It's
understand.
kind of canon too. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
But
I'm sorry, Judy. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to praise that.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that, because our physical region was so big, I mean, is easier for me to drive down to DC and Northern Virginia than it is for me to drive to Pittsburgh, and that's still in my region. And the big gaming points in Keoland, if like Pittsburgh and like the Erie Buffalo crew and the New York City and North Jersey crew and then the Philly and South Jersey crew, all of those were closer to other regions. You know, the Pittsburgh guys would jump into Valuna, the Buffalo guys would jump up into Toronto.
Good point.
Hit Geoff all the time in Northern Virginia. So people had character that they would make for other regions because they knew, you know, you could get to a convention, you could play, you know, 8 rounds, 10 rounds if you brought caffeinated Mountain Dew to the Canadians, because apparently you can't have caffeinated Mountain Dew in Canada. Because it's not a cola, so it's not allowed to be caffeinated. So once we realized that was the price of Midnight Madness, we started bringing cases up, and we got like a 2 Midnight Madness out of the Mountain Dew Code Red.
So Stolok asked a question: is Gary Julian's Silent Ones was that an organization at all or utilized?
Oh goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there are no silent ones.
Right.
Ah.
That was there is no such thing as this group that everyone knows about. Yes.
So for a lot of the meta orgs in Keoland, first, we're a country of magic, not faith. So anything religious really didn't come up that much. But almost all meta orgs had a lawful and then a chaotic counterpart. So you would have something like the National Academy of Wizardry, which was, you know, Harvard. All of the rich wizards would go there and have frat house parties and come out with a magic spell book. And then there was the Silence, which, you know, was for the sorcerers and was very much a matter of, no, this doesn't exist in Keoland. They're the ones that wound up taking Black Razor and dropped it into the bottom of the tower that has no bottom. And so there were a lot of places to go meta org, but you could find a counterpart at the same table that, you know, there weren't official goals of any particular mod, but you could see that play out. You know, you have the Gradsoul Navy, and then like the gnomish sea mages that have the floating submarines that would pull out in the middle of an interactive, you know, and so there was always that you had a home, but you also had a rival, and that would come up every now and then and just amplified within the region as well.
So, wow. I guess it's just why a lot of you burned out quickly. It seems like a couple of years because of the size and scope of these. Is that true? Everyone want to tackle that one?
I'll go first because I burned out the fastest.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just so much work, right? It was a part-time thing that turned into a full-time job, because not only were you for a while I was the only triad. I was the only person running things. Soon after Judy came on and a few others stepped up, but it was just, not only were you writing and editing adventures and keeping an eye on the forums where you were trying to tell stories there, you were using any means possible to tell stories, because 8 adventures in a year wasn't enough to feed the fire that was burning in these players. So you were doing everything that you could to give them what they want. And like I said, in Keoland too, it was also a little bit of a rough ride, just in terms of the players' attitudes at some points. So it was a great trial by fire to let me know that, hey, I really love doing this and I want to keep doing it. I just can't keep doing it in this venue right now. And I have to take my hat off to Eric, who, I mean, Eric was the gold standard as far as I was concerned for storytelling, for running a region in a way that kept the players engaged, kept people coming back for more. And if I could work with anybody on anything, it would be working with Eric, because his creativity is unmatched as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome.
I'll second that. It was partly the reason I didn't want to be Triad. I at first I looked at it. Some people asked me about it right after year 5 when Eric retired, and I remember thinking, I don't want to do that much work. That's like a full-time job Eric's just doing. And I remember talking to Eric, and he was like, "Yeah, I would have done it. I would have done it in 3 years instead of 5. That 5 years is just too much." And it was a tough act to follow, but it was like Casey was saying about the control thing. It was a matter of year 6 came around, the story started diverging from what was already established in the storyline, and I was like, no, I need to jump in and sort of at least keep it tethered to the previous 5 years, because they were so successful, and they were successful for a reason. So yeah, didn't want that job. Somehow ended up with it for 2.5 years.
Yeah, the average turnover, I think, in the BK Triad lists was 1.5 years.
Wow.
It's a lot
I
of
think
work.
the other thing that contributed, right, is not only were you doing those adventures, you had to get them ready for premieres so that they go at specific conventions, and then you had to integrate the interactives, which usually were just one-shot adventures. Maybe not as much polish, but they, had to have that impact, unless you're just doing a throwaway. So if you wanted to contribute to the plot and the storyline, it had to have impactful, and that took a lot of work and effort, and I'm sure contributed to burnout.
Yeah. Our region didn't really allow throwaway interactives or adventures.
No, if you did one of those, actually showed up and ripped up the adventure and threw it at you, if I remember correctly.
Who?
Oh yeah.
One of our friends, he was unhappy with the adventure, so he went over to the author, tore it in half, and threw it at him in the middle of a convention.
Wow. Now we would do throwaway interactives in the BK, because we would get like someone saying, "Hey, I'm doing a con in 4 weeks. Can you support it?" And the dumbasses we would crank something out for them. But for our big events, obviously, we put in a ton of planning, and it all tied into our plots.
I got lucky that I had a very good team I got to work with. Mark Judson, Brad Lester were amazing, and they were my other Triad members I was working with. And then we had a lot of really good writers and support. Jose, Alisa, Jim Lockhart, the list goes on and on and on. It just, so many people had to contribute in order to make this doable. Otherwise, if one person tries to do it, they're just going to flame out within a year. But
year 1 through 5 Triad was really good at delegation. That was a key skill to have.
We had to bring back a retired Triad guy in the BK because we needed help.
Brad, for example, was great at delegation. You couldn't say no to him. It was impossible to say no to Brad. You came out of there and you're like, well, I just agreed to this. I don't know why, but now I have this job. That was Brad's superpower.
Yeah.
And it was such a great superpower.
So how did the storylines in general go in both regions, and how did you end up at the end? Anna wanted to know were they
I was
successful?
kind of curious how much Geoff was liberated.
Yeah. Who wants to take that one up first?
Eric, go for it.
All of it.
Oh, awesome.
Our story began with a wedding and ended with a kiss, because it is a fairy tale. We were given the giants, and we balanced them off with fairies, because the giants are big and brutish and hit things really hard, and the fairies are all saves and trickery and cunning, and they balanced each other out so that the players had to have a full range of abilities to deal with both threats. We made the players work for it, though. We were kind of building on the ordning, where they had to fight like the lower giants, and then work their way up until finally they fought the cloud giants, who were unenthusiastic participants in this entire endeavor, and then finally faced off with the Storm King, who was a storm giant, and the Sakut, which was mentioned in that Liberation of Geoff adventure that Casey mentioned earlier. But we changed that one to being storm giants to throw a nasty surprise. And not just these storm giants, leveled storm giants.
Oh yeah. I know you guys gave them levels of cleric because you could give them 2 levels for every 1 CR.
They would never do that.
Yeah, of
All the
course.
time.
Yeah, and you know, you take a giant, you throw 8 levels of cleric on it, and it's what, CR 16 or something with spells. That's brutal. Can I ask a quick ordning question?
Sure.
I'd never heard that term until Storm King's Thunder, the 5th edition adventure that they set in the Forgotten Realms. I personally think that should have been a sequel to G1 through 3 set on Earth. Where's ordning from in Greyhawk canon?
I thought it was in that Liberation of Geoff book. I'd have to go
Okay.
I mean, we had the giants just keep shouting, "Bigger is better!" and hit you. They also kept trying to capture you, to shove you in their ovens, to turn your bones into bread. They also had this nasty habit of throwing boulders that turned out to be rust monsters at you.
Oh my gosh.
Or pieces of
awesome.
Pieces of troll. I knew that was coming. The catapulting the trolls.
That way you throw the trolls over the party so they regenerate on the backside and attack the weak wizards who were at the back. Fire giants that had tower shields that they would throw down and then step on while on top of you.
Oh,
good times.
Yeah,
Jay, this is all 3rd edition cheese. Jay is scared to death of 3rd edition cheese.
Mark,
He just doesn't want to deal with it.
I'm old school 1E2E.
That was
could do horrible things. That storm giant monk was a thing of horror.
Skagath on? Please tell me Skagath's not on.
That will be his.
He would have a coronary.
I think he would love the monster the most that you said against his poor players, or he would never want to hear about it ever again.
And surely you had the giants riding on Dragonback too, coming into some battles.
Oh, we didn't.
I think I've heard about that, didn't I?
maybe one.
I think we had one.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the Sakut had a pet dragon that he rode.
The monk Saku, one of my most vivid memories was still as a player, Mark Yutson, basically the stat machine on the Triad in years what 2 through 5 or something. It was at his house. He had statted up this monk Sakut, storm giant, and we got to his house. And our party's pretty badass, and we go in there and we get to the final boss fight, and the Sakut, we open the door and he's just standing there, and we're like, okay, well, is he attacked? Should we roll initiative? He's like, no, he's just standing there. We're like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and buff, and everybody starts buffing, and he's just standing there, and we're going, oh no, we're in trouble because he's just letting us sit there for like 4 rounds buffing ourselves. Oh god, we're gonna die. And it was as bad as you think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, we were lucky in Keoland where we had one of those stat monster players in every quarter of the region, and we had too many people who've been and had too much time to really get the ins and outs that we couldn't use the same old stuff each time. So when we brought a rust dragon,
oh,
that was entertaining.
Oh man, with the powers of a rust monster.
Oh, the rust dragon, and what was it? Sean, what was the one that took the spells?
I gotta remember that. I'm writing that
down. I only remember the rust dragon because I had a player who had a paladin whose armor class was 50 whatever, and he was always so proud. And I was like, okay, the dragon breathes on you, roll your save. Oh, you failed. Yeah, that armor and that shield you had, no more. What's your armor class now, pal? 10? Wow. Oh, nice. Well, guess what? And
I mean, the high level cheese was just so bad. You had to do that.
Yeah.
That was really right. Every triad secret weapon was having that one really, really mentally cheesed out person who would come to your side And I had Bill Mensch, if anyone remembers Bill.
Yeah.
And so Bill and I wrote some of the core adventures. So I would write the story. And I'd be like, okay, Bill, here's what I need, and Bill would be like, okay, and he'd cheese up some monsters for us and have a grand old time.
Bill, I remember Bill because he joined a meta org in Geoff. He had a character who was in the Griffin Guard, which was the Brennan or the Grand Duke's personal bodyguard. And my character was also a member, but I remember all of us would look at Bill in awe every time we played together because his character was just so cheesed out. Like I had no idea you could even do that with the rules. And I was
exactly. And so I turned him to the side of evil or good, depending on what side you're on. And it was great fun working with him. He taught me a lot about game design, right? Just seeing how his mind worked and seeing what he was able to do and be like, okay, so now whether it's 3rd edition or 4th edition or 5th edition or whatever, I'm going to use that same paradigm and be able to use that. So it was great to work with him and with a ton of other people.
My co-author was one of the, Finn was, it would be like, wasn't quite the, Lisa Hazlitt and Eric, but, I'd come up with a story arc and then Finn's like, so get it out of your head and put it on the paper. And so he would read them up behind me to make sure that what I've been talking about for like the past couple of weeks actually made it into the mod. And then, he came up with the assassin monk mind flayer and, various things, once we started giving the Rukaneer like barbarian levels, it was just, but one of the things that I think it worked because whatever critter we wound up using, you had to build it for the player base. So we had to come up with the tweaked characters because we had the tweaked characters, but it had to fit. Like you couldn't just something out of nowhere because you would lose all respect. It's
right.
What is that thing doing here? It's like, no. If you're in the middle of the Dreadwood and you're fighting giant plants, well, yeah, you're gonna have something. You're plant that's you want to take out a plant, well, he's got caster levels, so he's got resistance to fire, and all right, go ahead and now come up with what you're doing. And it
Plant
was
with
always
truth
trying to
level,
be we wound up being a half one step ahead just as the story arcs progressed, because somebody would you do something, you'd run them on at the table and somebody would come up with something, you're like, we're going to use that. We're going to put that on next time. And then, see how they reaction. But I think that the fact that we had so many players, you got to, you matured not only as a player, but as a DM and as an author as well. Because, hey, I would have never thought of that if like 6 different people didn't say this to me at a convention. Coming down the escalators at a convention, somebody's like, hey, I know where that guy is. And it's like, oh, hey, maybe we could put it there,
Yeah. As far as story arcs, there was in Geoff, there was the main giant story arc, years 1 through 5, but there were also a bunch of side story arcs. So, for example, in Geoff, there's the 4 main forests. You got the Hornwood, the Oitwood, and the Dim Forest. And each of those, the High Elves and the Hornwood had their own drama going on. The Oitwood Elves, the Grey Elves and the Oitwood, there was a whole story arc where the players had to sort of convince all the elves, one by one, to come and join the fight against the giant. So that was a whole story arc that sort of got resolved towards the end and in year 6 through 8. The Dim Forest story had the Wood Elves, and they had a big old shadow dragon that had been there for a while. It had a portal to the plane of shadow that was really pernicious and nasty. And so there was a whole shadow plane story arc that also got resolved in years 6 through 8. So you had all these stories that were simmering in the background during the giant stuff that sort of, luckily, I had to play with and we had to play with in years 6 through 8 and sort of finish those off because people were interested in those because they'd sort of been simmering in the background all this time. And luckily I had John Piper was my Mark Judson, and he statted out this really horrific shadow dragon that was the big battle interactive at the end, and that was probably like 3 hours of just fighting the dragon at a table, and it was fantastic.
Wild Shadow Dragons.
The Hasforensis. I think was the-
Hasforensis, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And do you have that lair somewhere placed on your map?
It's in the dim forest. Yeah,
I
that's
thought
why
so.
I knew
Okay.
the name.
Yeah.
We all had to come up with cheese to throw at the players because, Living Greyhawk kind of told us, don't build your adventures and encounters for the extreme power gamers, because then you're going to lose the people who are there more for role playing or who maybe aren't great at character building for combats. But the power creep from all the splat books and going from 3rd edition to 3.5 just kind of forced all of us, because if we wrote average encounters, a ton of people would be bored. There'd be no threat of the characters dying. And then you get, what was it, Tomb of Magic or whatever that spell book was. PCs suddenly get Anticipate Teleport, which in the BK, when we had demons teleporting in to start encounters, they're like, well, I got Anticipate Teleport up. I get 3 rounds of buff spells, bing, bam, boom, encounter over.
Gosh.
So we started giving our bad guys Anticipate Teleport. So when the PCs were trying to teleport in on things, next thing they know, they're in an untiered encounter because the bad guys had time to summon reinforcements. And then Delay Death. I don't know if this wreaked havoc in y'all's region, but it was nuts. So I gave Delay Death to a Geoff demon from Monster Manual 2, and I put that thing in a red dragon's mouth. So the red dragon was going to quicken breath weapon it, and then drop it to the ground, and then full attack it, and everything within 30 feet would take all of that damage, save for half. And unfortunately, someone used an RPGA reward card to avoid a surprise round. I'm just going to say it, pardon my French, those goddamn RPGA reward cards.
Oh my gosh.
And then they won initiative and they cast Dispel Magic on the Geoff to get rid of the Delayed Death, because they realized that was the biggest cheese I could throw at them, and it would have killed these 14th level characters in the first round.
That's what Ring of Counterspell was for, though. You gotta equip the bad guys.
I'm not going to put a Ring of Counterspell on a Geoff. My cheese has limits.
Ours had none.
I don't know.
Ours had absolutely none.
I'm not so sure, Casey.
Eric, which was the mod that it was after the free for all, after Magic Mart went away, and Eric had one of the Fae start taking out bottles and throwing them out on the ground and breaking the potion bottles so that the players couldn't get them as rewards. And so once players started realizing, it's like, hey, they're destroying our loot.
I called it drinking your treasure. I would have the bad guys continually drink the treasure.
Right.
Summer's Passing, where you got stuck in the hedge maze with Gaunt, and he kept breaking your magic items until you did what he wanted you to do.
Right.
And that was after you rolled the rust monster stuck inside of the Iron Band arrow, because you were nice and wanted to give them the surprise round for the paladin to pee his armor before the other direction.
That's amazing. I put a blue slot in a force cage with someone and thought I was devious. Oh man, I wish I'd have done what you just did.
That mod.
I
to set off the mail bombs.
Yeah, there was something about up in Cat. There was something with a 88 armed lizard man throwing 88 harpoons in one round or something. And
no, that was Grad Soul. That was Sean Smith.
Okay.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Was that the same adventure that had the legendary T-Rex of legend?
No, that was me. That was me.
Yeah.
The thing's the size of a house.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
The legendary of legend combination templates never died, and it never grew old.
No, it's fun.
Good.
Because you take like a legendary pixie of legend, or like a legendary Born, I think, was one of the ones that we used. And it's like, look, it's so cute. You can squish it, and then they're like,
Yeah.
I think Eric can expand on this, but I remember one of the big issues that some players had was losing all their magic items, because during one of the battle interactives, the stone giants had crafted these monoliths that they would roll onto the field that cast Disjunction on a regular basis. And it was just, people would rather die than have all their magic destroyed. And
Sounds
it was
like Tim
just,
was
Oh
there.
God, the
It was
whining if
most-
someone lost a magic item.
Right.
There you go, Tim. They used the disjunction.
Yeah,
Oh my
but
gosh.
how many players, like, if they lost their big legendary
Blingy bling.
item that leveled as they leveled, right? That became their identity. And
Mhm.
I had players saying, if you break this item, I'm just gonna quit playing.
Yeah.
Right. It's not kill my character. I don't care if you kill my character.
Wow.
I can, but take this item that I had to go to 4 different regions
Yeah.
to get, some whatever finagling they had to do. That was the thing, right? That was the thing. And that's 3rd edition, and that's also a living campaign, right?
Yeah.
That's the pitfalls of that. But there's also positives of it too. So you have to take the good with the less than good.
So, I mean, there was the interactives kind of put into that because it got to the point where if you went to an interactive and it was a battle interactive as opposed to like one of the story interactives, people would go, I've been saving all my gold, I'm going to buy all this stuff. And they would load up before the BI. And then it became bragging rights. I went through 36 potions of healing, 1 mud,
Mhm.
And then it got to be
Shield. I remember the potions of shield.
uh-huh.
Oh right, before they fixed that, going from 3.0 to 3.5.
Yeah.
What was that? Explain that.
You could drink a potion of shield because the spell shield was personal, and potions could do personal effects. If I remember
to make you
correctly,
mean a
in
magic
3rd edition.
missile? Is that what you're saying? What else?
Well,
Well,
no,
just-
and the armor class bonus.
Right. So a shield spell's for wizards, right? To throw up in an emergency. But if you can drink a potion of shield, then your barbarians and your fighters and anyone who already has an armor class of 37 can drink a potion of shield and have a armor class of 41 or whatever the math works out to.
I guess it's 3rd edition rules because it doesn't
Yeah,
work that way in 1e2e.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
It was just a bug in their potion design in
Okay.
3.0 that they fixed for 3.5. But for we were 3.0 all the way through year 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
It sounds about
Something
right.
like that? Yeah.
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 Sounds like it sounds like Tim would have thrived, Casey, in that
I think so.
environment,
Oh,
in that abuse environment. Wow.
I think so.
Haste 3.0 haste was out of hand.
Oh boy.
Mhm.
2 spells per round.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And there's no aging, right? There's no you lose a year
Nope.
off the
Right.
end of your life.
That's old school.
Right.
I was running Jose through a playtest of the Summer's Passing, which had the hedge maze, and our evil fairy comes out at one end of the pathway and says, "Aha! Found you! Lightning bolt! Kabam!" And party makes some their saves, some fails. It goes, "Oh, I'm hasted! Lightning bolt! Kabam!" And everyone was dead except Jose.
Only because I could walk into the bushes as a ranger. That was the
Yeah,
only-
so we immediately had to
Mm.
get back to the drawing board, like, we're gonna kill the region.
Wow.
And I think it's important to note that we all kind of learned that there was an acceptable level of aggressive cheese that we could put into adventures without getting just our players super angry at us. Okay, I threw a half red dragon troll at you. Quit whining. It's immune to fire.
Yeah, it was a fine balance, trying to
Nope,
find
kissing
what
first.
would work and what would
But,
be stomped by your
and-
players immediately.
Still maintain the frost giant with cleric levels is legit.
Yeah, why not? They have gods.
Yeah, well,
I don't have a problem with that at all.
really help them all that much.
It doesn't, but a whole person spell here and there is always a good thing, right?
And
Yeah.
in 3rd edition, he's going to get +1 BAB for every 2 cleric levels approximately, right? So that's going to increase his number of attacks eventually. He's going to be able to throw up defensive cleric spells, buffing cleric spells that last hours per level, bull strength, things
But
like
his
that.
star is going up for every other level.
True.
So there is it's going to make him tough, but it's not going to make him
Right.
insurmountable. Besides that, 1 greater dispel, everything comes down.
So
Yeah, more than fate spinners and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
don't get me started on that. That could be its own show. Bitches about fate.
It's its own
It-
show.
The
We ha-
players in our region knew if they were able to use it, it was fair game on the other side of the DM screen.
Yeah.
If you're going to put a ring, put a protection from evil into a ring of spell storing on the barbarian so that he didn't get dominated and kill the entire party. It's because you saw a player do it first, so it's like, well, we can do that. How many times we had something out in the middle of nowhere, it was like, oh, you want to dispel evil on the demons? Guess what? They're going to dispel good and send you back to Keoland.
Turning
that
paladins.
was a couple of TUs gone.
Something evil clerks you never do. You can turn paladins. That was an old school. I mean, there's a lot of tricks, right? Always crazy stuff. Definitely.
And that's one of the things of organized play campaigns in general. Doesn't matter what edition or where you are. It's who's your audience and how do you best serve that audience.
Yep.
Because and with Living Greyhawk, towards the end of it, we were serving a very specific audience. It was those invested players who wanted all of that. They reveled in that, but it did leave out any new players unless you gave them a specific particular on-ramp to get into the game, which you could do in some ways. Like they had intro adventures that were allowed, at least when I was Triad, that you could. So that was a nice gentle way to bring them in. And then, oh, by the way, be very careful when you go play that 5th level adventure, because it's probably not going to be pretty for you.
Conrad, Anna, Mike, any of you have questions?
I have one that we talked about on the previous show here, where we weren't really sure. What's the difference between the Knights of the Watch and the Dispatch?
Basically, the Knights of the Watch were the traditional heavy armor mounted combat. The Knights of the Dispatch were closer to like a ranger brigade.
Okay.
One of the princesses of Keoland was Knight of the Dispatch, but they had if you were a Knight of the Watch or the Knight of the Dispatch, it superseded almost any other loyalty that you had. So we actually had to have our princess give up her mission in the Knights of the Dispatch, because when she had to take care of things at home, no, you can't call me to help you guys. I have to take care of things here. And people who got into it as players, it wasn't a secretive organization, but you had to do very specific things. And it really became this is what this character is all about. It put a mute on any of the characters' personalities, but it was their be-all and end-all, more than a lot of other organizations.
Yeah.
I think because it was cross-regional as well, that helped to emphasize it even more, because you could go to another region and play with a Knight of the Dispatch or a Knight of the Watch from the ground and be from Keoland, and you could trust that character. You've never met that player before, but you knew you could trust them and trust that character. So it had in-game consequences.
And then we had Knights of the Malgari in Keoland, which was a whole different set of rules to live by. Because of the ties to Vecna that Keoland had, there was sort of this, I've mentioned secrets at the start of all this, right? So it was this sort of secret organization that rooted out evil magic, even if the player characters were using said evil magic. So that became a sort of player versus player, not combat, but player versus player ethos in Keoland was, am I going to use this evil magic? And since we're so aware of it because of our past, what are we going to do about players throwing around necromancy or bringing necromantic magic items into Keoland?
There are no undead in Keoland.
Right. I forgot. And there are no silent ones.
We had our version too. The Knights of the Dark Knight. If you remember those from the Sorrow is Deepest Night. So this is a fun one. Those who might not know, the Knights of the Watch were known for using these ridiculous names. for their titles.
Yeah.
So whenever the party is dealing with a whole bunch of fairies in Sorrow's Deepest Night, the fairies emulate humans, and they are trying to build their own army, so they try to emulate the best soldiers they know, which are the Knights of the Watch. So they have proceeded to start creating their own titles and ranks within their army that they are a part of, that the party is infiltrating, and have to work their way up through the ranks. In order to do that, you had to earn your titles. And the titles the fairies came up with were completely ludicrous. And we made a random chart of like 1 through 50 of your noun, your adverb, your adjective, and your prepositional phrase. So that, oh man, is there a way I can post this? This is always fun. So you can become the indubitably nocturnal hedgehog on a stick. Your title as one of the fairy knights, or
Nice.
the snazzy fruit bat of doom.
I need that.
Excellent.
The Knights of the Watch players were not amused.
It is funny.
That was politely said.
One of the things I don't hear you guys mentioning were the Bissell, Ulick, and the Yeomanry kind of like not quite as involved because of their physical locations. Like Ulick was Florida and Puerto Rico, right? And Bissell was Connecticut on up, and Yeomanry was much of the South. We used to bug the shit out of the Yeomanry and the BK because we could travel to Louisiana and Arkansas. But were they as involved with you guys in these cross-regional plots and meta-orgs?
Not as
But
much.
we didn't have a barrier with the yeomanry, so we couldn't do cross regionals because you had to be adjacent.
Oh, right, okay.
We had a grand march between us and them. And Bissell is the same way. They're New England, but we were good friends with Jay.
Oh yeah.
And I went up to several Bissell conventions. They had all their who was it? Everard was their big bad guy.
Oh,
all the necromancy. They had a great thing going. I never got down to play Ulick though.
Because Jay's home campaign is based in large part in Ulick, and we haven't gotten any of them on yet. So if you guys can help us reach out to some of your former compatriots from these other regions, and even from your regions, we can do more shows in the future.
Yeah.
I'll pass on the show.
Any
So I was told to ask for about the Bandit Kingdoms because we did have a couple of players come up. What was the deal with the boots? Because every time a Bandit Kingdom player came up, they would steal the shoes of whatever they killed.
You're lucky they didn't take the doors.
because they needed cash.
There were no money. There was no money in our early adventures, year 1, 2 adventures and whatnot. So the PCs quickly learned they had to take everything. And if it had a price in the player's handbook, it could be sold for treasure. So you had doors taken in the BK. You had shoes and boots taken in the BK.
Flour.
They were just flour, dirt poor. Chickens have a price in the player's handbook. So if you come across a chicken in a Bandit Kingdoms adventure, that thing's going to be gone.
Oh my god.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably what it was.
Was it you guys that spawned? There was like a whole thing in the Greyhawk player's guide about if you died from poverty because you couldn't afford the life, even the dirt poor lifestyle.
I actually think that was probably Divers. I don't know if Joe's still on or Divers.
I don't think he is.
But I don't think that was a BK thing. I was Triad like year 5 and onwards. I started writing in year 3 and helping in year 4. So I don't recognize that. Conrad, does that sound like anything to you?
That was early on. That was like year 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was campaign wide. That wasn't specific for us, but
yeah.
I mean,
that will be
because you did have lifestyle costs.
Yeah.
Maybe your character starts to diff.
I know that the Verbabont guys, the Shieldlanders, the Furiundians, the Divers guys, they've all said the same thing. Their early mods gave out almost no treasure and no gold, and that their players were just stripping everything. And then in the Bandit Kingdoms, we would have players that would go and buy masterwork crowbars because it gives you a +2 on breaking shit.
Yeah.
It's an illegal player's handbook item that you don't need a cert for.
I mean, 20 years later, I'll still be at a convention running 5e games in a different world, and the players will say, "I Greyhawk the body" after they kill it, and I'll be like, "I get that reference."
Yeah.
No, you
in the
you
BK,
don't
it was
understand.
IPK the body, but yeah.
We had players who were quick on their feet, and quick on the calculators, and would be an hour and a half into the mod, and somebody would be, finish up an encounter, and the guy would go,
We
"Hey,"
hit cap.
and
Sorry,
then they just
I knew
stopped the game.
exactly
It's
what you were
like,
gonna say.
"Yep,
Yep.
that was us."
So to let Jay and the audience know, if
please.
you can throw up one of the adventure records, the accounting system, if at all possible. So the treasure and experience was accounted for, and there was a maximum limit after, say, year 1 or 2. And our compatriot Susan likes to say she's one of the reasons why there's a max, because she stole Brendigan's ring and sold it 3 times at Gen Con and made like $60,000 during one GP during one adventure when she was like 3rd level or something stupid. But anyway, so there was a cap on how much gold pieces you could earn for each adventure, and it was like 450 gold pieces for APL2 or whatever, and it scaled up from there. Once you knew you had that much treasure, anything above it was called over the cap gold, and you could spend it like it was going out of style because you knew your character wasn't going to get to keep it after the adventure. It could be a magic item that was going to get sold, or it could be, dude, we got a pirate ship. Well, a ship is 20,000 gold pieces or whatever it was in 3.5, and you're going to tell the dungeon master, well, we sell this thing at the end of the adventure, unless the adventure does it by fiat, takes it away from you. So anyway, over the cap gold, you would then buy your raise dead spells or whatever other healing spells you needed. You could say, well, I'm going to go buy the wand of cure light wounds and just cure all of us. And it was just one of the artifacts of the accounting system. So I'm not surprised to hear Judy say that, because we had that in the BK as well.
That's crazy.
And they're going like, boom, we've hit treasure cap.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it was also one of the reasons why they didn't let you carry spells from one encounter to the next, because there was no paper trail that you could validate, and something like that. And it's like, oh, I got shield permanently cast on me, and so it was just no. You have to,
right, because if you had that much money, you could teleport to the free city of Greyhawk, have a wizard cast these permanent spells on you, which is all perfectly legal according to the 3rd edition player's handbook. And there'd be, the campaign already had balance issues. As you've heard, we've had to throw ridiculous monsters at the characters once they reached about 9th to 12th level. If we had to deal with that, and that's what they ran into during Living City, right? Those of you who remember Living City, 1st level characters were walking around with +5 magic weapons.
Yeah,
because it was forgotten around.
Every bartender was a retired 20th level adventurer. I mean,
right.
Oh my gosh.
And you have to do something with all this equipment. You may as well give it to the new guy who just walked in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, the binders.
Oh my gosh.
And one after another.
Yeah, I know a lot of you guys have worked on Living FR, and I'm currently running, Icespire Peak, which is set in FR, and I played FR as a kid, but it's a completely different flavor from Greyhawk when it comes to the magic item access and the cheese and whatnot.
And the level levels.
Well, I think Living Greyhawk scared them. The amount where it was like, guys, can we do this? Anyone? They didn't say no, let's go. And I think that happened a lot, definitely in our region and a couple of the other regions. So I think when it came to LFR, they just went, no, we're not giving those guys that much power again. So a lot of stuff was scaled back and tweaked, I think, as a direct result of Greyhawk, to be honest.
Conrad, what do you have there you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah.
So, Eric, why don't you show your shield?
Yes.
No, go. You got to go get that, Eric. Come on now.
At least speak so it.
I think ours is in Korea with Brit,
or maybe in Tulsa.
Oh, is it with you?
No, I think it's in Tulsa with his mom. Maybe in storage.
Well,
I got the
steal
feeling
that.
it's in storage.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There
I
you
know.
go.
Next time we talk to Brit.
That looks like the same company that manufactured. They manufactured all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when the campaign was kicking off for Gen Con, RPGA or Wizards of the Coast made 20 of these shields. I think it was supposed to represent each region. I'm not sure, but and then towards the end of the campaign, they were trying to clear out their warehouse, and they took them to Gen Con, and there was a dungeon delve, I believe, where you could you would get like 1 to 5 tokens, and these tokens were Greyhawk coins in cardboard, obviously, and you would turn you would turn the coins in for like, I think 100 coins or 200 coins would get you a choice of shield.
Wow.
So,
Oh, is that how it happened?
yeah, that's how it happened. Yeah. So there was no way, I was at that show, and there was no way that I was going to be able to get enough of these Greyhawk tokens. So I kept feeding some young teenagers that just loved to play. I fed them generics, and they gave me their tokens in return. So I managed to accumulate enough tokens to get a shield. And so I was looking and picking up a shield, and I noticed the Geoff shield. That was the one shield I knew, the region I had visited and enjoyed. So I picked up that shield and took it back to my hotel, and was, I think, chilling out at the hotel. I hear there's a knock on the door. Open up, and it's a couple of Geoff players, and they said, "I understand you've got the Geoff shield." I said, "Yeah." Well, we've been going through the delve trying to collect tokens to get the shield for our triad member, and we noticed that you took the Geoff shield. I go, "Yeah, can we swap?" I said, "Sure." So I went and got the shield for the Palmars, and the Geoff players took the Geoff shield to give to
Awesome. That was nice.
Yeah.
Great story.
That's probably the nicest BK story any of y'all will ever hear. Conrad, you should have kept the damn thing.
Well, I wanted the BK shield, but somebody had already laid claim to that one. So,
Jose, who were the people that did it?
Sorry.
Do you remember who was the ones that gave this to us?
I vaguely remember it happening, but I don't remember who it was.
That part has fallen out of my brain.
it was a group of players.
Yeah.
I am eternally grateful, though.
Yeah, it's a nice piece of work. And what is it? Swordandarmor.com. I don't know if they still exist or not, but yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Britt ended up with the BK one. Greg Marks has the High Folk one after Chris Tulloch was the one who grabbed it and then gave it to him. And I forget if Joe and Vernon and Ron and them, if any of them ended up with one.
I think the Divers players or Triad might have gotten theirs, but I don't recall.
Who got the Keoland shield?
Nobody that I know of.
It's funny because Bill Mensch, who we talked about earlier, got one of the shields, and he could have taken the Keoland one, but he's like, he took another one that was much prettier. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But that was after my time on the Triad, so I wasn't expecting it anyway.
Great stories, though. My gosh.
Yeah, fantastic.
I got a real big question from Josh Pop Zarathon here. I'm going to throw this out here. Hopefully this discussion has gotten your blood flowing again for Greyhawk. So would any of you ever consider DMing or playing any of those old games like Casey's going to do down the road?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably.
Awesome.
Our home game is set in the city of Greyhawk. So
Beautiful.
Never left.
That's excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to pop that up because, the first weekend of October is Virtual Greyhawk Con. So if you want to know more about it, please just talk to myself and or Casey, and we'll get you all the information you need. We have plenty. We have 10 Twitch channels participating, and we also have a lot of ways just to do games via Zoom, via Discord, irrespective of Twitch. So we'd love for you all to, join up and maybe run a game or play in the game. Casey's running a Bandit Kingdoms tournament. So, we'd love to see some of that come out. And I popped that up, and I popped the Discord up as well. So please feel free to
Have we
join
told
up.
the audience what the prize is? I think we mentioned it on Sunday when I was a bit foggy.
It was late. So,
Yeah.
Of course, the prizes are these signs.
Yeah. Well,
Look
one
at
sign.
that. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So we're gonna have a blast. So that would be cool. Plus, I've been DMing for a lot of the triads from Bandit Kingdoms and Divers in a game. And there you go. I'll pop that up there. The next one's August, was it 15th? Saturday, August
Yeah.
15th. Yep. On
The
on this
return of the
channel.
return of Garn.
Yes. Third one with cannon fodder. So that we're trying to do more and more stuff to get everyone back from the Living Greyhawk back involved in what we're doing here. So that'd be awesome. All right, I know we're winding down a little bit here. Why don't we talk about how you finished up in 2008, right? And your final thoughts on your experiences with everything, and then we'll see where we're probably going to run a little late if you don't mind, because I know it'll take more than 15 minutes. But let's start out with Jose.
Well, I can tell you that it was sort of a shock when they ended the campaign. I was triad from 2006 to 2008, and the whole time we were getting new players that were getting interested in Living Greyhawk. And in fact, during the Gen Con where the announcement was made, I had a friend who had just joined the Living Greyhawk thing. He was like, second level character, and he was really pumped about it. And then they made the announcement, and he was so upset. He left that hall just really upset. But and they didn't tell any, as far as I know, any of the triad. I even asked, but because there was rumors going around, but I didn't know anything about it until the announcement. So luckily, our storyline sort of had a pretty organic ending in 2008. That's when we were going to have the big Shadow Dragon fight. So the last convention where that was going to be resolved was the last convention period, and it turned out to be good for the region. It was a good finale, but as far as some of the new players that had come into the community were just not happy about it. In fact, a lot of people, including myself, sort of stepped away from the living campaigns for a while. So a lot of us weren't too thrilled with A, the way they did it, and B, the system that was replacing what we had loved for so many years. So a lot of us took a step back and played other systems, and only recently started coming back to D&D. But that was my memory.
So you killed the Shadow Dragon?
Yeah, group of 6 players, like 4. The whole ballroom was completely empty by that point, except for that table, because
awesome.
and they were
Probably
there,
1:30 in the morning, right?
like 2 in the
Saturday
morning,
night.
like 2 in the morning. In
Yeah.
fact, John is in the chat. John Piper, fellow triad who designed the stats for Old Shady, as they called her, was there running the whole thing, and he was there like until 2 in the morning. And he just reminded me she had a dispelling breath.
Oh yes,
inspired by the monolith. So he's like, we got to do something about these players. But
I love dispelling breath.
And in fact, I think she only went down. The only way they could hit her was by rolling 20s, which is why they were there until 2 a.m.
Natural 20s.
Natural 20s
Oh
on
my
the die.
God.
What CR was she?
What's that?
What CR was the dragon, and
Oh,
what level were the players?
It was probably a table of ranging from like, I want to say 12 to like 15, something like that. And I don't know her CR. She was beyond her CR because John had found every splat book, everything.
Oh yeah,
and put in there. She was just unbelievable. So yeah, the only way they could hit her is by rolling a 20, and finally somebody got that last 20 and was able to take her down, and was just riding high for the next day. But
that's awesome.
Sean, how about you?
Even though I left after year 3, I still continue to write for the campaign. I wrote 4 core adventures, one of the specials called Here They Be Dragons, and then the 4 adventures ended in with year 7, and then I worked with Eric on one of the Greyhawk cores. So for me it was a great campaign, coming along at the right time with the right rule set, with the right atmosphere around it. I know that it wasn't sustainable, both as someone who worked inside it and also someone who stepped back and kind of watched it from the outside for a while. But it showed how, if you can catch that lightning in a bottle, D&D and Greyhawk can be great, and it can do great things for players, for DMs, for creative minds, like all of ours. So, for me, it was the beginning of a very long career that's been continuing since then. So I can't thank all the players and DMs and all y'all for being with me along that ride.
Great. That's a great point there. Just as I mean, the camaraderie you have that with people to this day from it. I mean,
Yeah,
that
for
you
sure.
still
And
talk
the
with.
fact that we're talking about it 12 years after the last convention. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the guys I met playing that are still playing with last night. Right, we're playing other things, but we're still friends, and it's because of that we are.
I will interrupt here real quick and say, well, there is a Greyhawk revival going on right here, right, Anna, right, Mike, right, Casey, and we got more and more channels
Absolutely.
that are are involved, and we're welcoming to all, especially those who had experience in the past. So just consider reaching out. We'd be more than happy to welcome you back to some kind of play or some kind of discussion. But there's always people are always looking to run playing Greyhawk games.
And
So
I think you guys have seen from the chat participation that you could do a whole show with just Geoff.
yeah, which we probably will. We'll probably invite them both back.
Details
Absolutely.
of your mods and encounters, and same for Keoland.
Absolutely. We're probably going to invite both of them back in separate future shows. Definitely.
just, if I could interrupt, I just
Sure.
saw John write in the chat that that Shady had a touch AC of 40 plus.
Mhm.
So.
Ooh.
Oh my. Yeah.
Nice.
Whew. Crazy. Eric,
Yes, sir.
how about your sum up?
Well, I had successfully escaped being a triad by year 8 whenever they announced the campaign, but I was working as the plot coordinator for the Honor Among Thieves story arc that we were doing, because remember how you mentioned that you needed low-level on-ramps for campaigns? That was our low-level on-ramp, because we had Jason Bowman was working on this enormous giant epic plot line. We're like, but what are we gonna do about people that just showed up? And so that's where Honor Among Thieves went. We were also surprised by the announcement. I remember I was staying next to Jose when they made the announcement at Gen Con, and he said, well, better start wrapping up your adventure, your campaign. And I had the same thought for ours, because we had to jettison about 6 plots that we had brewing. One of which that I was really sad that we were never going to get to was we had a whole Knights of the Great Kingdom arc that we wanted to do at some point, where they had to go find the one true king of Arity and put him on the throne. The problem is that every candidate they find is just complete rubbish. And at the end of it, they decide there is no good one true king of Arity left anymore. So they're going to go invent one. And so they start trying to tell the story about how a boy king or a child king who's sent off to be trained by his uncle in the woods, hoping that if they could make enough of a story about it through the bards, that this will actually come true. It's a last ditch gamble, but unfortunately that story didn't come through. The other storyline that we want to do is founding a new drow city underneath of the Wild Coast.
Oh no. Oh my God.
Didn't happen.
Rawhide Sinlu too.
That was because we were like, well, we saved the drow for something. Obviously, they're coming to the Wild Coast, and all the wonderful stuff there. So instead, we went for a much more modest ending, where we had the elect the future directors of the city of Greyhawk to decide which direction the city was going to go in the future. We did have a talking goat as one of our candidates. You get to meet Zagig in the course of it. We get to do a revisit of the old Lands Beyond the Magic Mirror adventure.
EX2.
Yeah, EX2. You get to go visit him there and suffer through his chamber of gratuitous testing. it was a lot of fun we had, and we thought we made the best of it, trying to give a satisfying conclusion to 8 wonderful years in the city of Greyhawk and trying to capture that feel that we had.
Excellent.
And I loved working with Sean on this one. We had Ron Lundeen write another one. Was he working with you on that one, Sean?
No.
And Brad Lester did another one. So we had to adjust our expectations at the end. And fortunately, we were able to do that. And I think the year 8 core adventures were some of the best ones we did, because we were getting really good at writing adventures by that point. Also, because it's low level, I didn't have to put up with a 40+ touch AC. Like,
Oh my gosh.
you know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Judy, how about you?
I started describing Greyhawk after it was over as a college experience I never had. And I think, I switched from Triad and started concentrating on the writing year 5, and had 2 mods coming out like within 3 months of the end of the campaign. And as a player and being able to play mods in my own region, it's like, hey, my character just, interacted with an NPC that I created. That's kind of neat. But I think I played some other like Pathfinder and LFR and DAL. And I think that what we had in Greyhawk, that whole camaraderie, that yes, everybody wants to have the most tweaked out character, but the whole storyline behind it, you could say Dreadwoods, you could say Princess Khalees. People remember Princess Khalees. You play some mods now and it was like, oh, hey, I played this mod with another character like 6 months ago at some other convention. People had vested a lot of time and effort into it. And as much as I hated to see it go, it definitely, for me, both as a Triad member, as an author as well, and I think Sean and Eric and Jose can all back me up on this. It was definitely a, I'll just one more mod. I'll just keep going. There's still a story to tell, and if they didn't end it, it really would have sucked the life out of you. But you weren't going to stop. You really would have been that classic fantasy character that like died at the desk with the pen in their hand because you weren't about to let it go, because it just, the players fed you the energy to keep going. And going to the conventions and interacting with them, or getting on the board and interacting with them, you learned a lot, and you learned a lot that is applicable in a lot of other situations too. I used to tell one of my coworkers, I said, I don't have any issues standing up in front of a group of people and training them on computer programs, because I'm used to being a DM. I'm used to standing up in front of a bunch of people and saying, this is how things go. And sometimes somebody's going to say something, and you learn how to react as the person in charge. And it's like, you don't have a DM screen in real life, but all those lessons of delegation and people management, it's real world. And the fact that you got to learn and have fun at the same time, and you got to be creative, I think it was what all of us lived for years at a time.
Very cool. All right, one last question, because it's from Gary Holian. Did you ever do anything with the Mad Baron of Dillwich?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was a couple of adventures that featured the Mad Baron. And what I've tried to remember, you have to understand, this was 15 years and maybe 4 million words ago. But that definitely sticks out of my mind. Just role playing that and having the players explore what caused that madness and how it tied into the history of Keoland, basically. And I would have to go back and look at the adventure to tell you how or why.
Well, the mod,
but Judy could tell you.
Yeah, the mod came in and they submitted it to, I think it was, were you there when it came through?
It was past me. Yeah, I'm sure it was Christian.
Came into our plot guy and Conforti, and Stephen kind of turned around and there were things that would not pass the NCAA rating. And Stephen basically turned around and said, you guys have this weekend to fix this. And the high level tier kind of went off in the general direction of the mod. And the low level one was when you got sucked into like the Alice in Wonderland and PCs got stuffed into the Hansel and Gretel oven, which was a mimic that was owned by a hag, and the chocolate Rambo bunnies came out and all their ears were missing, and they were barbarians because they were very pissed off that humans would eat their ears. That was 48 hours of nothing but Mountain Dew and Christian and I going back and forth trying to figure out how to fix this. But yeah, I mean, he was fun because he was a noble and he was insane and he wasn't that high level. I think we only had him as like a noble 5 or something, and players were double digits at that point. And one of the things that we were able to do in Keoland and with all of the live interactions was, no, just because you're high level adventure doesn't mean you get to bully around royal NPCs that have single digit hit points. We had somebody try that at a convention, and I think it was one of the Jersey conventions, where Sam just went around to the high level table of PCs and went, hey, we have a problem. You want to come join us? And it was the one time that they allowed PC on PC combat where there was like, somebody's trying to kill a noble of Keoland. What are you guys going to do about it? We're going after him. And they didn't realize it wasn't an NPC, it was another table. And it was, no, guys, this is part of this. This is Keoland. Like, you guys aren't nobles. You have lots of power. But just because he's insane doesn't mean you can beat him up and boss him around. And there were a couple crazy families in Keoland, and it was mostly due to the inbreeding. I will have to track that one down for you.
Very cool. So let's do some shout outs what you're doing now, and we'll run through this fairly quickly. And Mike, you've been quiet most of the night, man. What do you got going on?
Soaking it all in.
You got I saw you had a nice big new war up on your blog. So what do you got going on?
Oh yeah, that was pretty awesome, Mike. I want to say, as a Bandit Kingdoms guy, screw the 10. I know I said it on Facebook.
Yeah, well, for the other guests here, I've been doing a 2E series on my blog of recounting my wars that I did back in the 90s. So after the one true good King of Erde was found, I moved on to the Bandit Kingdoms and the Horn Society, and actually the Pale teaming up to recap it on the Fun Ice. Just all kinds of just experimenting with different wars, combinations, stuff like that. So that's what's going on. Otherwise, I wish I knew a lot of you guys back when I was running my 3.5 Epic campaign, because I had a lot of that cheese going on. Constant headache.
Yeah. I think we've all done that at one point in our Greyhawk world lives. Yeah. You know. Cool, Mike. Anna, how about you?
Well, I'm taking a break from the Atlas for about a week. I've done halfway through, so the first 27 of the 50 maps are available on my site. So the atlas is I've decided to, well, people have asked me, said, oh, I want to be able to print the atlas, and I had a version for the 598 map that was kind of more for living Greyhawk, but people always asked me, said, oh, we want a 576 atlas, and it's kind of funny because that was the project that TSR kind of offered. It was even in the TSR catalog back in 99 or 98 or something like that, 97. And they had an Atlas of the Flying and that I was waiting so much for that one. And when it didn't come out, I started doing my own. So that was actually the reason I started getting into doing Greyhawk maps. So now I'm finally taking my version of the Flying on the 576 and dividing it up into 50 maps. And it will be, so you can print it onto 11 by 17, and there will be margins for bleed and stuff. So if you want to have a binding or something like that. And there will also be a digital version where I typically taken the two halves and put them together without any of the bleed or anything that you can use on iPads and stuff. And there will be a master index on it. So Dwayne Costa is one of my patrons and friends, and he's working hard on doing the index. So there will be an index on everything on the map. So probably about 25, 30, 35,000 names is on the map. So they will be indexed, and there will be a master index. There will be some appendixes with the heraldry. There will be a political map, overview maps, and some of the other stuff too. But now I worked on it for about a month, and I've done half of it. So I'm going to take a break of like a week or 10 days, and I'm going to update my website with some cool stuff. I'm going to work on the planet Earth, a little bit of the climate maps, and some other cool stuff that I put aside. And I'm also working on my Shieldlands campaign map, and that is looking really, really good. And so I will have a Shieldlands map of, so far I think it will be the southern half of Shieldlands, the whole of it, meaning 300 miles wide at 5 feet per pixel resolution, so I can see stuff. So I'm going to treat the whole campaign area as a dungeon basically, but outdoors. So we can go around and go in and dig in and see that little hut over there and follow this trail. So I want my players to see if they can get their characters to literally get lost and not find their way back, unless they roll, so to speak. So there will be a DC. So they will there will be like a fog of war, and if they haven't been there, they have to memorize the map and see if they can get their way back again. So there will be a little bit of fun that way. But that is also the first test case that I'm using for the new generation, because the current Greyhawk map is 20-year-old technology or 25-year-old technology now. So now they're coming tools that are simply just beyond anything. So I'm working. So it's still an embryo because the tools I'm using are still in alpha or beta. So it's kind of a little bit iffy. So this is kind of a first test case, but it's looking damn good so far. So it will be the first test case for a new generation of Greyhawk maps. So that's
and if you had a time machine, you'd be dangerous.
Yeah, we'll see.
And please note for everyone on here, Anna will be having her own campaign and her own maps with her edits on it for her campaign as a seminar during virtual Greyhawk Con. It's going to be massive. So
yeah, so that will be. I will present the first kind of the cool bits and pieces on the Shieldland map, and that will kind of show a little bit what's coming, so to speak. So with the generous, awesome support I get from patrons, that way I can actually work on this part-time. So it's awesome. So I'm so happy, especially in dire times like this, to be able to sit and do that. So I'm so thankful to everyone who wants to help me do it. So and during the COVID, everything, I'm not hiding anything behind the Patreon paywall and stuff. So they get it right away, everyone. So it will come. So my campaign map will be, that is the meaning the whole Flannies, it's based on the same terrain, a few edits here and there, some cool edits that I will point out. So I will release just before my seminar, the campaign map will be available, so you can kind of study it and come up with all the questions, all the crazy stuff you can see on the map, so to speak. But I don't think my campaign is too over the top, but there's some interesting developments and stuff that I'm going. And it's set in 598, 599, so it's a few years just after the Greyhawk Wars. I didn't actually took every detail that happened in the Greyhawk Wars and made it canon, but some of it I did, and I took a lot of the place names and stuff. So that's coming, and there will be some more updates on my website and stuff too. But the Atlas is coming for the Greyhawk virtual Greyhawk Con. It will be ready, all of it.
Thank you, Wally, for the raid. I was going to raid you, believe it or not, when we finished up. I was asking Josh to check out, so I really appreciate it, Wally. Thanks, man. Oh, timing there.
Yep.
So, well, Anna, I mean, we're all looking forward to it. It's going to be all awesome. And plus, Anna's playing with Cannon Fodder as well. So we get to see Anna playing with all the Greyhawk Triads. And it's only a month. It's a month from today, actually. So
We dubbed her honorary triad, guys,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
of her map. She incorporated, I sent her Bandit Kingdoms things years ago, and she unhesitatingly incorporated
Oh
them.
yeah, I love it. That was awesome. So yeah, so
And she's our secret weapon, because people like Anna a lot more than they like me. They don't throw the hero points at the monster.
The anti-hero points, yeah.
Is that what you call those? Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, the DM, they give them to me to use against you. So, you know, Tim and Casey, they have a thing going back and forth still. So I thought you guys called it truce, though.
Well, we're not spending money.
Okay.
We're just because
Against
he was
each
spending
other.
a lot of money on giving you points to attack me, and that was starting to make me mad. But I'm at 13.4K
All
right
there you
now,
go.
and
You got
every
one special- you got
10,000
one
is a
regular.
point, right?
Yeah, you got one regular hero
So
point there.
Tim already knows. I already gave him a warning tonight in the chat. Yeah.
Conrad, what do you got going on? You got anything fun D&D wise going on, man?
Oh, COVID-19's pretty much shut down all of my activities. Normally, I see a bunch of these guys at Gen Con or Origins or whatnot, but it's all gone virtual, and they don't need me at the show, so I'm kind of chilling. But I do miss the travel and missing visiting with all the people that I see at the conventions, because it's been a social thing, and kind of like lifelong acquaintances and friends. So that's what I miss.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
Here,
sorry,
here.
really sorry about that, man. It's just it does
that's
stink.
It's life.
Yeah, we're trying to make the best of it here. So, and that was my idea for getting this virtual Greyhawk Con going. So I even sent WotC a letter saying I'm using the name Greyhawk Con, and it got escalated. Then they sent nothing back. So, oh well. We're doing it not for profit, and we're doing it as fan content. So it falls under fan content rules. Hey, got to make the best of a bad situation. So, Casey, what do you got going on, man?
Well, first I want to say that Conrad's new Zoom background should be a picture of that shield for his work Zoom meetings. But one, I wanted to ask the Keelan guys real quick. Seaton, did you guys develop the town of Seaton? Because I'm running Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I'm doing adventures there, and I'm just wondering if there was any way I could get information on Seaton that was developed by you guys.
We did a decent amount of Saltmarsh stuff.
Can you maybe can we connect offline?
Yeah. The problem with Saltmarsh for us was that when the DMG2, I believe, came out, they had like Saltmarsh as like the Las Vegas of Greyhawk. It was like built up and all this crazy stuff.
It went from population 5,000 to 10,000 and all that, right?
And so we were like, okay, back off. So after I left, I think stuff was done with it, but not while I was there.
Because I think you guys will get a kick out of this, and maybe the Geoff guys too. So in G1 through 3 on page 22, you've got Lord Obme, his first appearance, right? Other than the Gord books. And in it, it just has this one sentence like he's wanted for murder in Keoland, or that may be in I Use the Evil. So I'm running Ghosts of Saltmarsh now for my home campaign, and I'm having them go to Seaton to buy magic items. And in the 5th edition Ghosts of Saltmarsh, there's a tiefling in Saltmarsh who sells magic items, the loyal quartermasters of IUs. I'm a BK guy. I've put IUsians all over this adventure now, even though they don't make sense in Keoland, I bet. But I decided this tiefling needs a bodyguard. I've given her Lord Obme, and he is now murdering people in Seaton. I've added him out in 5th edition. He's awesome. And my players are trying to figure out who's doing the murders in Seaton, and they're getting attacked by demons all over town. So I've kind of brought the BK to Keelan. So I apologize for that, but I thought you might get a kick out of that.
Definitely, absolutely.
But I want to give a shout out to Sean. I'm also running Dragon at Icespire Peak, and the sequel to that is Storm King's Wrath.
Yep.
And he was the lead designer on it.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yeah, I wrote that along with Will Doyle and James Introcaso. We did 3. I did the first one, and so James did the second, and Will did the third.
So you were like lead on the first one, but helped on the other two.
Helped
Y'all
on the
kind
other
of-
two, right? Yep.
Cool. And I kind of want to lean into you to reach out to Perkins, because I pitched to Perkins once a Best of Living Greyhawk 5e Adventure Path series where we would take one adventure path for each meta region, right? And we would do the best adventures from each meta region and convert them to 5e. And for the IU's meta region, I called it the Best of Living Greyhawk, the Rise of IU's.
Nice.
And I'm like, how the hell did Perkins not immediately say, take all my money and write that for me? So I want you to lean back into Perkins, because if I can get a full-time writing gig, I might be able to quit my insurance job. And I love my insurance job,
Well,
but
I mean, I've worked with Chris a couple of times. Chris scares the hell out of me. Just in general, his brilliance is unmatched, and so I call him Mr. Perkins.
Okay, good to know. But so aside from that shout out, I want to shout out Virtual Greyhawk Con. As Jay's mentioned, in October, I'm going to be running Bandit Kingdoms adventure converted to Pathfinder that was declared like the scariest adventure people at Gen Con had ever played. But of course, this was year 2 or year 3. I'm sure things maybe came out later, but it's set in an insane asylum in the city of Rook Roost, which is controlled by IUsians at this time. And I'm going to do it tournament style, 5 pre-gen PCs, 4th level. And we're going to do a point system for how far they get and how many things they kill or what they survive. The winning table, everyone's going to get a PDF copy of my book, and I'm going to make them vote on table MVP. Thank you, Mike. $5 more for Mike. And I'm going to make them vote on table MVP like we used to do in the RPGA when it came to figuring out certs and things like that. And that person will get a signed hard copy of the book. Nice. As a reward. So I just hope everyone, looks up Virtual Greyhawk Con and considers running events for it. Like, I'm not one of the official organizers. I'm just really excited to help out.
It's going to be exciting. It's like I said, we would love for all of you to participate in some fashion, and definitely have you all back in the near future. So I'm sorry, someone's going to say something. My apologies.
Oh no, I'm being long-winded.
It's okay.
I've just got to keep. I keep getting inspired. Thank you guys for coming on this show, and thank you, Anna, Mike, and Jay for having us. But I had never gotten to play in Geoff and Keoland, and this was an amazing experience for me tonight to hear your stories, because I've heard about your regions, back during the campaign, and I know how much work we all did. But to hear it, it's like this fellowship we have. We are the Fellowship of the Living Greyhawk, administrators. So I look forward to hearing more from you all in the future. And then for personal projects I'm working on, I keep saying this, Joe has really inspired me. I think we all know Greyhawk's not going DM's Guild at this point, but Sean, if you hear anything, we better hear from you first.
Yes.
Okay.
Because if I hear it from someone else who's not Greg Marks, I'm going to be mad. I think we all know it's not going DM's Guild at this point. So I think I'm going to look at a model like Joe's doing and release Bandit Kingdoms stuff for 5e. I need to finish writing my Rogues Gallery, where I take canon NPCs and Living Greyhawk characters and NPCs and convert them to 5th edition, and then do my Mercenaries Guide to the Bandit Kingdoms, which would be an updated gazetteer for the year 600. And as soon as I get married in a couple weeks, I might have some free time again.
Nice. She's laughing at the answer to that's no.
That's not how that works.
Damn it.
Strike that, reverse it.
Well, there's no kids. We have 4 cats. No kids.
Okay.
Not yet. So.
No. Dude, I'm 46. It ain't happening.
I'm 53 with a 10-year-old.
I
know I don't look. I know I don't look 53, but I am. Just kidding. Jose, what do you got going on, man?
Well, because of the COVID situation, one of my home campaigns is on shelved for now. I've been playing virtually with Eric in a small group. We've been doing some Greyhawk City stuff, which is sort of cool to be dipping my feet back into that world. And of course, made a character from Geoff. So that's as far as gaming wise is what's going on. Because of Eric mentioned earlier that I worked in the performing arts, but because of the COVID situation, there hasn't been much in the way of performing arts, and so I'm in good company. At the end of this month, I'll be going 100% freelance because those theaters have been hit really hard. So I'm looking into different ways to transition into that world. And maybe start a Patreon. Maybe I've definitely been working on my artwork for the past couple months, and I'll be updating my website with that stuff. But
Please,
sort of
if you have a
looking
link, if
down.
you want to put up links, any
Yeah.
of these, please do. Eric, can you show the two drawings again while Jose's talking? Because I know you showed them at the beginning. Yeah.
Here's Grand Duke Owen.
That's amazing.
that's
Jay, can you
fantastic.
make like Eric the big person in the Hollywood Squares?
Without crashing things. I don't want to risk anything right at this point here, but
And that is
Eric, I think there's a better rendition behind you on the ground, isn't there?
Oh yes.
They're just wonderful.
Can you hold the that one up?
All right, so we saved this one for the end. This is the painting that Jose did, which was for the entirety of our first 5 years of Geoff.
Well, that was a gift to Eric from all the players for the first 5 years.
And it was the T-shirt that is still worn these days.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, you had a shirt with all that on it?
Yeah. Full color print shirt.
Oh man. So I'm like, yay!
It's a great
I've
t-shirt.
got a little, yeah.
Jose, this art's amazing, man. On your site, wow.
Is there like a image of it online anywhere? Like oh wow, look at that.
Of that one, no. I do have an image of it. I should maybe put it. It's sort of as an artist, you look back on old stuff and you're like, that's not representative of my art currently. So, but yeah, I can send you a copy if you want.
I think you should post it in the Discord or send it to Jay so he can share it.
If you can send something, I would be more than happy to post it up. Absolutely, it's amazing.
Jose was a t-shirt making machine while we were on there. Oops, there went the shield.
What's that one say?
Grand Duchy Geoff.
It was a battle interactive.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Oh, hey, we did have one on a shirt.
Yeah. So our work is on the shirt out there. Wow.
And every time we had a battle interactive, we had a new shirt made.
Damn, we were slackers in the BK con.
Yep. Wow, that looks awesome. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that link, and hopefully we'll keep in touch. And who knows if you have room for commissions, you may be hearing from some people after tonight. So
definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'll be doing now. I've got a DM's Guild product in the works. It's going to be sort of an art book / NPC source book. Sort of you can use in the Forgotten Realms, but you can also use it wherever else. So I'm working on that currently.
Fantastic. We will. I guarantee we'll have all four of you back too. So thank you so very much, Jose. Sean.
Well, if you want to follow what I'm doing, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Merwin. I do have a podcast that I talk about D&D with various people weekly. It's called Down with D&D. You can find that on the Misdirected Mark podcast network. I am working on a lot of things. Some of the things I can't talk about because they're under NDA. But you could always go to the DM's Guild and search under Sean Merwin and find a list of things that I've worked on for 5e. And I wish I were playing more. COVID-related things obviously are keeping all of us from meeting with friends and family as much as we would like, but I'm experimenting now with some online tools and hoping to play online more, run some games, play some games, and just keep this great hobby that we have going.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Eric.
My life is currently being consumed by the Moon Chase, which is Adventurers League regional campaign might be the best way. It's inside of the Adventures League. It's a series of adventures, 20 trilogies, so 30 adventures. It's all being run through Ballman Games at Origins, Gen Con, Winter Fantasy. It's been a lot of fun. We have some books up on the DMs Guild. I have one here.
I might have one.
We got a fantastic product together.
Awesome.
So we have our moon. Can we do it without the?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
There we go. I'm trying to get it without the.
Oh, so it's an Adventures League Rising Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I also got to write a Drow book with Brian James, Menzo Baronzon, which is also available at the DM's Guild.
Nice.
That has been keeping me very, very busy lately because there's so many adventures. But if you like Geoff, then you would probably like the Moonshays because they're very close relatives. I think I got the position. Is that right, Sean? Because of the work in Geoff? Sean's the one that brought me in to do the Moonshays.
Yeah, I had started it with Baldman Games because I was a big Moonshine Isles fan, and it just got to be too much for me. So I was like, I know just the person who can put out 60 adventures and make them all wonderful. Hey, Eric. And so I ran screaming from that, and Eric stepped in.
60.
Yep, 20 trilogies. So 60 adventures.
And we're talking like 3 encounters per adventure.
Yeah, 4-hour adventures plus other peripheral stuff.
I mean, that's half of a region's normal adventures that we did during Living Greyhawk.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. There was a reason why I ran screaming.
I've been blessed by a great team. Peter Schleipen, who was the Niron Triad.
No, he's in
Neri?
UK.
Neri?
He's Holland.
Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Holland,
Yeah.
Netherlands, yeah.
He's one of our trilogy leads. Amy Lynn DeZura, who's one of the admins, is another one of our trilogy leads. Savannah Houston McIntyre is one, and Joe Rosso, also who's a very active Living Greyhawker, are my trilogy leads. So I rely upon them, and then they assign those to writers. And then I have a team that does editing, and then I have a team of artists. So I'm just one there keeping all the plates spinning as best I can.
Marathon just
These are Adventures League, right?
Yes.
So
we have through Moon 6 on the guild right now. 7 is in layout. 8 is just got done with proofing.
And each of those is a trilogy. Moon 6 is 3. Like miniature adventure pass.
Yeah, 6-1, 6-2, 6-3 would be the full trilogy. Yep.
So I think one of the things Paizo, and now it sounds like WotC RPGA, is RPGA involved in the Adventures League, or is it a defunct?
RPGA really isn't used anymore.
Okay.
The Adventures League is its
own
a
thing.
Subsidiary of Wizards, basically.
So it sounds like one of the things that's learned is that to make these campaigns successful, you actually have to monetize them, because these products, you have to buy these adventures, correct? But you only buy it once.
Right.
And you can run it however many times you want to. And Paizo, obviously, they sell their Pathfinder Society adventures as well. And this is one of the things I think was a problem for Living Greyhawk, is that they relied on volunteer effort, all of us, and we didn't produce quite near publishable quality all the time. Perhaps I'll speak for myself on that one, but I've seen other regions work, but we could have if there had been some sort of economy that supported that level of effort. So to me, it's really neat to hear that there is a more successful model, because if you can do 60 of these trilogies, that's very successful from what I'm hearing. So that's amazing.
We're in a very unique situation because we're Baldman Games. And so Dave Christ, who is Valuna Triad, runs it, and he is looking for content to run at his conventions, Origins and Gen Con and Winter Fantasy. That's his number one concern.
Adventures League provides most of his content?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure he's working with Pathfinder Society people in some way, shape, or form as well, but that would be a different conversation.
Well, it's that's not quite it. He is providing Adventures League content to the Adventurers League, so it's really the opposite. For some of his conventions, he gets stuff from Wizards from the Adventurers League, but he needed more content to bring in more people. So he said, can I make my own content? And they said, well, maybe. And so it kind of worked its way through that. So he can create Adventurers League content that's not provided by the Adventurers League. And that's what Eric is in charge of, making sure that the content that he's creating fits in with the rules of the Adventurers League. Does that sound right, Eric?
So to speak.
Yes.
Wow.
But, yeah, Dave's number one priority is he needs content to run at his conventions.
Wow.
And that's where we come in, is we write for the Adventurers League and submit them to, and we have a whole review process. And that, so we're writing to get approved, and then Dave takes it and runs it at the conventions, and the way he pays the writers and all of us is through the royalties in the DM's Guild.
Right. Awesome. That's amazing to hear. It's grown to be, they've learned lessons and they've grown. So if you guys start doing Greyhawk stuff and you're doing demons and using stuff, y'all better call me. I want to tie in with Beetle and Grimm's. We'll do, a not overpriced box with them, and then we'll do t-shirts and plushies, half red dragon plushies.
Shields.
Shield, yeah.
Shields.
Yeah. Beetles and Grimm thing either. So,
well, the other part of the economics, people expect interactives, and those are going to happen just at these major conventions, and maybe a few select, and you still have to pay for the writers, right? I mean, it's can't rely on volunteer work, or it's unfair to rely on volunteer work for good content.
Yep.
All right, so Judy, to finish it up for my quickie stuff.
After Greyhawk, I switched to Pathfinder and did some LFR, and then had to take a break between work and home situations. So I was out of it for a while. Had started to work with Dave Guerreri on the Greyhawk Reborn. And then life intervened. So things kind of started to get back to normal-ish about 2 years ago. So I came back to DDAL because that was the only game in town, and was looking around at that and looking to get back in. And my co-author Finn was in the same situation. We had very difficult home situations, and several funerals later, we're kind of back to, hey, we miss the people and we miss the creative stuff. And so you guys kind of came along at the right time.
Okay.
I was starting to get twitchy, got a couple coworkers dragged in to play D&D, said, hey, they haven't heard any of the old tales yet. But the one thing that I've discovered with the later campaign was it's hard for me to be creative in a vacuum, and I can't, if I'm not enthusiastic about playing, it's hard for me to do the creative stuff. So going back to Greyhawk, or hanging out and working with folks that I've worked with before, and the creative juices are starting to flow again, and I'm in search of an outlet for them. So some of you guys are going to be hearing from me.
Great.
Weeks or so.
That is fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and there's a chance I get to get some money to stab Merwin with a sword again. So
somebody's got to. And missed the first time.
Well, we're having
sometimes
we're having a blast. I'm having a blast
Yeah.
DMing for the other triad. So maybe we can make an arrangement to
plot in the first adventure.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, Joe
these guys are
Shelby
so
and them got so
paranoid.
paranoid.
They think everything is an evil conspiracy theory. It's crazy. So I want to thank you all for coming on tonight. This has been a real blast, and I guarantee you we'll have you all back on, and let's talk about some collaborative efforts too. Real quick, tomorrow night we continue our Narwhal Headhunters adventuring. with my latest sponsored Troll Lord Games. We're going to run our first Castles and Crusades, old school. It's called Shadows of the Halfling Hall, and I'm going to run it outside of Narwhal. And Anna's placed it on the map for me, the little town of Newbriar. So, these are all first level characters still with my group. This is our 20th adventuring group, by the way. I know I'm crazy. I know my players are crazy, but yes, this is our 20th.
You guys got to see his basement.
Yeah.
Anna's been there. Casey's been
It's
there.
awesome. Yeah.
Hey, do you have a guest book?
A what book?
You
A
should
guest
have a
book.
Yeah, you should have a guest book.
I've never had a need for
What
it.
was that old
Oh,
check-in web thingy people used to check in at places?
Yeah, you should have a guest book so we can be honored saying that we actually signed.
Never thought about it
Been
that
there,
way.
we've been
I think
there,
my wife would think I'm a little bit wacky for doing that, but
She doesn't already.
yeah, well, yeah, she does think I'm crazy. This is to top this off to end the week, Sunday night. Probably I've had Leonard Lekofka on the show many times, so Leonard's been the biggest guest until this, or an equivalent of this. Sunday night's Gavin at Lord Peakshaven. Eric Mona is coming on. Okay, I have Eric Mona with Anna and Gary Holian help me in the discussion. So I've been working on this for a year at least, right, Anna? It's been that long.
We've been trying to get Gary on the Legends and Lore for as long as Mike and me have been having it.
So Gary came on. On Legends and Lore last week. Finally, and
Yep.
Gary's on his here. Let me link this. If you haven't done his Cannon Fire Discord, which is just like the old school Cannon Fire, there's his website and Discord. I just linked. But Gary came on, and he came on Sunday night as well on our Gavin 100 show. And Eric came on last Wednesday to watch, and it was like, I love the style of just general discussion. So Eric agreed to come on. So I'm really excited about this discussion on Sunday night on our Gavin show. That'll be Sunday night, 7:30 Eastern. And then I always got to put this one up. 1 month from today, we're back together with our friends, and here we go. Yes, it's always sunny. ... Casey's like, what the hell does that mean? So Joe Selby, Casey, Andy McCullough, Anna, Susan Threadgill, and Vincent, cannon fodder. The characters we started them off at 5th level, 5th/6th. It's out of Greyhawk City. They've been in the Cairn Hills a couple times doing some things, fought the mongrels of the Putrid Tongue, fought some other things in my campaign. So, a lot of undead last week, which was great because Joe with his assassin just felt completely useless. And I found that highly amusing.
Yeah,
So-
our cleric of Palor wasn't there, so
I
he
know.
threw a bunch of undead at us.
That wasn't intentional.
Uh-huh.
So that's what's going on. But next Wednesday's Legends and Lore, we're going to go a little more basic here, and that'll be the Backloonish West. We're going to talk about that area. A lot of all from Mike, of course, because he's he's the expert of all.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're gonna talk about Zeef and Ekbeer and Tusmit.
Forgotten half of Flanny, so the Forgotten
Yeah.
West.
So that'll be a
no
fun
one knows much.
discussion
Yeah.
on next week's Legends and Lore. So now we're gonna raid into someone. You guys can please, if you want to, we do a little after chat. If you want to hang out and just chat, that's fine. Chat while the ending's coming on. Thank you, everyone. Eric Mona takes on the Screaming Column.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We shall see. But I'm glad y'all have a good time with this. Thank you so very much. It was a wonderful
meeting you all.
discussion.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
learned a lot tonight.
Thank you, everyone in chat, for coming
Absolutely.
and watching and participating.
Great turnout.
We're gonna raid into Praetor's Rejects. They're a good partner of ours, and we're gonna just raid right into them. But we're gonna, like I said, I'll keep the zoom up here. So watch this. I always hit the wrong button now. See, I did hit the wrong button. I hit a shout out button when I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, it always happens here with my there we go. See you all tomorrow night. That's one of my maps up for the table there. That's a blow up, so you can't really see too much on that one. But yeah, I'm a 1E, 2E minis DM. So thanks, Puppet.
Very
Thank
strict.
you,
It's hilarious.
Ash. See, I'm saying it right now.
Yeah, don't get it wrong.
All right, let me set up the raid in to go to Praetor's Rejects. If you haven't followed already, please give me a follow. I'd appreciate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for coming on.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
let's do this here. Raid.
Like the more I do these, the more I'm just like, oh, if we could do this again, but have infinite time and money. You know, the lessons we've learned.
You figure that part out. You let the rest.
Well, I keep saying if I win the lottery,
10 seconds.
I'll
Well,
figure
then,
it
then
out.
we want to have one of these books for every region.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely.
Send them to all the kids for Christmas.
All right, here we go. Rating in the parachute 44. That's a nice number. Here we go. Raid going in.
All right.
What is that being raid?
We send it and many viewers that wanted to over to another channel, into their channel.
They start watching.
Yeah, it's a Twitch thing. It really helps grow community. It helps other channels with maybe a lower viewership. Like Wily Hobbit's viewers came into ours, you know. So yeah, definitely. All right, here, let me end this up. Have a good night.